All right, welcome to the Sae Bae cast number 152 with Matt K. Matt, how are we doing today?
I'm good, thanks, buddy. How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm excited for this one. This one's definitely been highly requested by my audience. You're definitely one of like the absolute OGs in old school.
Brilliant, brilliant. Just before we start, actually,
Yeah,
or just as we have started,
yeah.
we just did a mic check before this,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing we always used to do at Jagex when we ever did live streams, we did mic checks, and there was a internal live stream we were doing. I was talking to the rest of the company. It wasn't going outside the company. The rest of the company about what Old School were doing, and started off doing the mic check. And I always say the same thing when I do a mic check. Because the guy at Jagex would always ask you the same question, and he would say, "What did you have for breakfast?" And my reply was always, "My wife from behind," and which made everybody chuckle in the room, and they were like, "Oh, Matt." But unfortunately, for this one event, they forgot to mute the mics
Oh
while it
no.
was broadcast into the entire company. Yeah, I didn't get called into HR or anything. So,
Oh my
we didn't
god,
hear it.
that is awesome. That's how chill Jagex is. They wouldn't send you like write you up or anything. You're good.
I think if the wrong person heard it, they might have done. If I'd have said somebody else's wife from behind, they might have complained about that.
Oh my god, that is awesome. Yeah, you know what? I really miss the old Q&As. As I was just saying to you right before the recording started, like I started old school late 2015. So the super old Q&As, the super old drama and stuff, I just wasn't there for it. I do recall some of the drama, and I've talked to guests on the cast that have kind of explained certain things that had happened, but yeah, I really do miss those like super old Q&As. They're a little bit, I don't know, they're just more modern now. Maybe in the next 5 years we'll look back at these Q&As that we get to enjoy now and see these as classics. But yeah, I really miss you on the couch and everybody else.
Yeah, it's quite funny how they all started because at the time when Twitch was kicking off, Old School had launched, and Twitch and Old School really sort of helped each other grow. And I went to my boss, who was the head of community at the time, and I said to him, "Hey, we should do something with this Twitch thing. It looks like it's important." And he's like, "Nah. Who wants to watch anybody play a computer game? It's just a fad. Ignore it. Don't do anything with it at all." He got fired 6 weeks later. Yeah, and went on from there. And it started off. They first started off. It was actually Mod Reach's idea. The Q&A streams, and it started off with us sitting in a meeting room with a webcam taped to a tripod and a tiny little crappy mic, and eventually we ended up building a whole studio around it, which was quite amazing.
That is so cool. It's such a brilliant idea, and it really feels, I mean, we already have a game that's community ran, and then having like real transparency with the team is just incredible.
No, absolutely. I think it's one of the most important parts of it when we, again, when we started off making Old School RuneScape and building it. It sort of me, Ash, and I think who else was in the team at the time? It was me, Ash. There was Nexus, and Dan. And it's like, well, how do we communicate with the players? And at Jagex at the time, there was a mentality of you cannot say anything to players unless you absolutely know you can say it. And I was like, well, why don't we just turn that on its head and just say what we want unless we absolutely know we can't say it? And because nobody was paying any attention to us as a game, none of all the senior people were worried about RuneScape at the time. We were just sort of like the ugly kid in the corner, and so they ignored us. So we just carried on breaking all the rules. And for example, going into the wilderness as a JMod, you could never do. God, you get so much trouble for doing that. But because no one was paying attention to us, that's what we did. We went into the wilderness, so we ended up killing thousands of players. I might even been before your time. I used to go into the wilderness, spawn party hats on the floor, and I'd have a tool that Ash made me, which made me practically invulnerable. And I would have, I'm trying to think how it worked now. You'd have only 1 in 50 hits would hit, and that would be reduced to 1 hit point. So there I was standing in the wilderness, probably 300-400 people attacking me around the outside, and me just with ice barrage, just killing as many people as I could. And, never got away with that.
That is awesome. See that, I mean, the team was so small back then. How big was the team originally?
So it's 4 of us originally. In fact, I wasn't the first community manager to work on it. It was a guy called Mod Drebin, but he left shortly afterwards, and I was like, yes, I'll go work on it just after it relaunched. And so there was the four of us. There was Nexus, who was one of the developers. He was never particularly public. We always sort of did things in the background. Then you had Ash, or you all know Ash, and then Mod Reach, who was QA at the time, eventually became a developer. And that started with four of us. And then who was next after that? I'm trying to think who came next. I don't know. We had John come in pretty quick because we needed more QA. So John C came in pretty early on. And we had Alfred, Mod Alfie, came in as an artist pretty early on as well. And then, we had the terrible trio of YouTubers. I don't know if I should say this. YouTubers who were brought onto the team by the CEO. They just sort of appeared out of nowhere, and we had Chris Archie, who's still at Jagex, so he was the good guy.
Yeah.
And then we had Silent Core, who, less said about him the better. Although I'm sure we'll probably get into it. Then we had Matt So Wrecked, who was one of the guys who first tried to get Old School RuneScape released. As he started off all the big shouting and screaming about how we all wanted to play the old game and nobody really liked TOC anyway. So we brought him on board as a video maker / community type person, and that was fun.
Man, like I just think so. You guys literally split off. So what was it? Is it like the end of 2012 when you guys were polling, introducing Old School RuneScape?
That's right, yeah.
And then it passed, and apparently it passed without like a dedicated team or something, or like a very, very small dedicated team. What was that?
Yeah, so there were I can't remember exactly what it was, but there were a bunch of tiers, and if it got so many votes, it would jump to the next tier. It got 449,000, I think, votes, and it needed 500,000 to move up to the next tier, which was a dedicated team and dedicated anti-botting support. But didn't quite get there. But MMG was like, well, we're close enough. Let's put some effort behind it. And so Ash at the time was writing a email to his boss to say, can he work on Old School? As his boss was writing him an email saying, go and work on Old School. So that was quite cool. I wrote to my boss as well, which is really interesting because at the time I was working in the publishing department. The publishing department was started 6 months beforehand. Was it? Yeah, it must have been 6 months beforehand. They publish games such as Ace of Spades and War of Legends and that sort of thing, but they're not actually produced anything. These are all sort of games that we had before the publishing team started, and they hadn't actually produced any games. And they spent their entire 12-month budget in the first 6 months. So I'm like, this ain't looking good. And so I sort of sent a message to my boss saying, yeah, can you get me the Old School gig? Because what was going through my head was that nobody expected Old School to succeed. Everybody expected it to be dead and dying in 6 months' time. And I didn't see the publishing department succeeding because there's nothing due to come out. And they spent so much money. It was like, they're going to get shut down in 6 months. So at least I'm going to have 6 months left at Jagex. I might as well do it on something I enjoy, such as Old School. And so, my boss got me the job on Old School, which was great. And then 5 months and 2 weeks later, an email comes around the company saying how they're shutting the publishing department. So I was like, dodged that bullet.
Yeah, for real.
And Old School went from strength to strength, which was quite astounding.
Yeah, I if I recall correctly, at least in the beginning, it seemed like Old School was dying without enough updates. How was that? Like, how was the first year of Old School looking?
There's a great website, which is, you can actually see the amount of people playing it. They've been taking the concurrent players every 15 minutes for the last 11 years from both games. It's called Misplaced Items, the website is. And it's pretty accurate for people playing the game. You can see in the first 6 months or so, it just drops. You have 300,000 people playing it, and it drops down to, I think, at the lowest, about 20,000 people logged in at any one time. And that was the lowest it ever got. And we tried to stop that rot from happening by dropping all the rare items in game. So we did community events to drop rare items in game because that's all we could do. There's nothing big we could do. There's no real updates we could do because even though we had a game that worked, we didn't have any supporting tools for it. So there were no map editors, there were no quest making tools and other such stuff that people needed to actually make content. Everything had to be written in code, and so there's very little we could do. So we kept dropping these rare items, and that made an impact. That slowed the amount of people leaving, and people seemed to enjoy it, which was great. And eventually, we managed to get. I'm going to ask see if you can guess what it was. The first update that stopped the game dying that we made.
I'm guessing God Wars Dungeon.
Yeah, you're too good. Yeah, God Wars. God Wars was the first thing. That's the moment that the users stopped going down, and people suddenly realised, oh shit, this game can be good. They could do things to this game, and from that moment on, it's just grown and grown and grown. And if it wasn't for Ash having very many late nights, and Nexus having very many late nights, and Reach having very many late nights, we would not have Old School now.
Wow.
So that was a big major turning point. And even though it didn't move the needle particularly at the time, that's the defining moment. I think that people realised, this game's got a future.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chart right now. I have it pulled up, and it looks like about mid 2000s. Actually, I guess like end of 2015 is where Old School started just outclassing EOC.
Oh, that was a day. That was a day.
Wow.
We
Yeah.
weren't allowed to celebrate it as well because they didn't want this competitiveness between Old School and RuneScape.
Now they didn't want the competitiveness.
There's a lot of RuneScape developers getting a bit upset that actually we were doing well, and there was tension within Jagex about Old School doing so well, and us getting away with stuff that no one else could, and it's like, well, we were just trying to make the best we could, but we knew it was happening because I looked at the numbers every day. I saw the figures every day. I was looking at how much we were going up and how much we were going down, where the new players were coming from. So I could see us heading towards the same membership as RuneScape. And I was, specifically forbidden from sending an email around by my boss at the time saying, look, it would just antagonise everybody in RuneScape. Don't do it. So I had to call my team over one by one and just point at the graph when I showed up and just watch them walking away with big grins on their faces going, hell yeah, we've done this. The world was against us at one point, thinking we would never succeed. And, suddenly we're the bigger game. And it's like, yeah, it felt good. That felt good.
That is so cool. No, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, Old School is just, to be fair, like I haven't played RS3 at all. But it's just so foreign to me. So I feel like a lot of the Old School player base really are just a lot of people that played as a kid, and so that is the nostalgia fix that they have. And yeah,
you're absolutely right. There's so many, and what's really fascinating is there's so many people I've spoken to who haven't played the game before and have come back to play, haven't even come back to play it, new to play it like you, which is wonderful to see, and that's quite spectacular. But I think there was a lot of antagonism between the communities as well in the early days as well, between the Old School community and the RuneScape community. But I think that's gone now. I don't think that exists anymore. I think a lot of people realise actually RuneScape's pretty good. You look at what it does. Doesn't deliver the same things that Old School does, but it has a whole bunch of other stuff which is really interesting to play. I mean, some of the new skills they brought out. I had to go at archaeology. That was quite fun. I haven't done the necromancy one yet, but a lot of people are saying that's good. They've got great quests. I mean, the quests are second to none. They were some of the best quests ever written in RuneScape, as well as some of the bosses as well have gone to the next level as well. So they've got some really good content in there, and more and more people are enjoying playing both games. But right at the beginning, you're either in one camp or another. You couldn't be in both.
Yep. Yeah, there definitely was a divide in the community as well back then. Just, again, like just saying I had never played RS3. I mean, I was one of those Twitch chatters that would just be like, RS3 Dan's game, just like what,
yes.
like, who enjoys this? And I literally had never played it before. So I'm like,
we did a Halloween stream once. It was a Q&A stream. And part of it was that while we were doing the Q&A stream, we were going to carve our own pumpkins. So we all had a pumpkin each to carve. I think it was me, Dan, and Ash might have been on it. We're all carving our pumpkins as we're sort of answering questions on the Q&A. And at the end of the stream, we all had to show what we did. And I sort of turned mine around saying that I've carved the most horrendous thing, scariest thing in my pumpkin that you've ever seen. Turned it round and it had the letters EOC carved into the front of it. got out of that and somebody said to me, I don't know who it was, somebody said, aren't you going to get in trouble for doing that? I'm like, look, come on. This is 5 years later. If people are still holding a grudge against it, I think it's their problem, not mine.
Yeah, for sure. It was mainly for fun, for sure.
Yeah.
So RS3, I will say, at least the stuff I've seen people stream it, and I've obviously kind of been up to date on Twitter with just the new updates and stuff. And it does seem like it seems like a way more polished game. And it feels like it has a bigger budget significantly. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to, though. I mean, the effort to put something into Old School is a lot lower than the effort to put something into RuneScape. So to put something into RuneScape, you have to have a whole bunch of whole art funnel, which is huge. The amount of effort to create a single item in the game is a lot bigger than it takes in Old School. From a code point of view, it's probably very different as well. But the effort to make something in RuneScape is a lot more than in Old School, which is why you don't need a bigger team. And again, equally, if you have a bigger team in Old School now, if you were to take all the RS3 devs, move them onto Old School, you would just get a lot more content going into the game. And I think that's what people really want. People want good content, not lots of content. So one of the things that I've heard about recently is the new skill, sailing, which people are talking about. And one of the things that I think the Old School team are worried about is they've actually never made a new skill. So they don't really know how to do it. So they're leveraging the RS3 team in order to help them understand what it is they need to do to make a new skill, what have they got to think about, what support they can get from the RS3 team as well, and trying to figure out how it actually works, because it's something they've never done before. So it makes sense to find people who've got an awful lot of experience in making a new skill in RuneScape and utilising that. So whether we see more people come over from RuneScape to Old School for the skill, I don't know. Yeah, that's potentially what they could do.
That would be pretty good. So you were there on the team when they originally pulled sailing. I mean, like the paint version, basically, of what sailing would have been. Was that like a legitimate thing you thought you guys could undertake? An entirely new skill?
Yeah, I mean, I always had in my head what I wanted that skill to be. So when the way we used to come up with new ideas for new content was we had a off-site for a day, and I'd basically give the team a couple of weeks to come up with pitches for ideas, and people would just pitch to the rest of the team ideas they wanted to bring out, and then we looked at them, found the best ones that we liked, and then decided on what we wanted to release. Now, I think it took about 2 days to do it, but first day was pitching, second half of the day, or first half of the second day, was about discussing the ideas, and then the last half of the last day was about scheduling it all and make sure, right, this is when we're going to do it, this is how long we think it's going to take, and getting a rough schedule of, this is what we're going to do over the next 12 months. And sailing was an obvious one, and it's like, well, I'm not surprised that it passed. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised it's one of the very few skills that would have passed. I don't think another skill would pass. Or would another... Yeah, I'll start again. So the only 3 skills I think would have passed would have been sailing, dungeoneering, or summoning. I think they're the only 3 chances of getting a new skill, or the first new skill into a game. But again, I was never worried about doing it, because I had it clear in my head what sailing was. I don't know what they've got in their head about what sailing is now, but back then, had it have passed to that point, I'd be like, great, sailing is this, 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 and this. Right, let's start designing it. And my concept of it was based on a game called Bounty Bay Online, which was a pirate game, basically. You had lots and lots of different skills you could level up, but the key thing for me is you got a boat. You bought a boat for money. You had to get sailors, and you had to get provisions to go on the boat. You had to, you could upgrade your boat. You could have different sorts of boats. Then you could sail your boat from one port to another. and pick up equipment and trade provisions and items and move things around the world. And then you could go out and fight NPCs, either good NPCs or bad NPCs. So you could become a merchant vessel or a pirate, and you could have sort of factional approach to it as well. And then you had PvP where boats fought each other, and then you had fighting on boats as well. So not only would you shoot each other, but you board each other's boats and destroy the other person's boat. And it was just really clear in my mind about what sailing would be, and hopefully we get some of that stuff happen in what sailing will end up being.
Yeah, when do you think it'll be released? I mean, how long does this kind of stuff take?
I doubt you'll see it this year, so I'd say 2025.
Okay, that's what I was...
They might do a teaser for it this year, so potentially you might get some sort of part one. I'm not sure how if they could make that work, that would kind of make sense, but it's never seemed to have worked well in the past doing that. Sort of part one sailing and a part two later on. But knowing our players, you do a part one in sailing, they'll be ready for part two in 5 weeks' time.
Yeah, yeah.
It's is one thing we've learned about players is whatever we expect them to do and how long we expect them to take them to do it, they will do it 10 times quicker than we ever thought. Yeah.
Actually, speaking of that, just a little tangent. When Inferno was released, did you guys imagine somebody was going to complete it?
Yeah, we knew somebody would, and we sort of made a deliberate attempt with Inferno, which was if we could find anybody to beat it, whether it was internally, whether it was through the play testing we did, then it was too easy. You have to make it more difficult. We wanted no one. In order to be the hardest piece of content, nobody should be able to complete it at launch. And I think we got that right. So that was really well done. Kieran got that right, quite frankly. So that went down really well. So.
That was definitely, I think, the people I've talked to on the cast about Inferno, almost everybody agrees that Inferno was the best piece of content that's ever come out into this game. It's just so perfect. It's the difficulty's right on point. It's held up after all these years.
Indeed.
And that's impressive.
On release day, we'd had a little sort of party in the office to release it, and prior to that, I'd order a whole bunch of different merch for it as well. So I'd ordered T-shirts for everybody and hoodies and all that sort of, and put together this little package. And I got some custom hot sauce made for it as well. So I have no idea where it came from, but we had little bottles of hot sauce, 3 different flavors of hot sauce for everyone to take home with little Inferno labels on the front.
That's awesome.
Which was quite cool.
Yeah, so I hear at least I think it was Inferno release. I think Theater of Blood release as well. You guys meet up in the office and just watch Twitch streams. Is that right?
Yes. Best bit about the entire thing was the bloat, because no NPC had ever ran before the bloat. And we're sitting there when I think it was Boaty got to it first. We were watching Boaty or Wooks, one or the other. And we were watching him, the first person to get to it, and it's like, it's going to run. Next ticket's going to run. And then it starts running, and it was like, oh my fucking God! What's going on? It ran! We're like, yes. That is, we had to hack the code a lot to do that, apparently, because it wasn't very easy to make it run.
That is, that is I feel like that is so good to have an update that's truly challenging, that's pushing the limits of the very best. And of course, the player skill level has just skyrocketed since that. So it's very, very hard to implement something that's still kind of catering to the vast majority of the player base. But Theater of Blood release was phenomenal, but it definitely wasn't as accessible as the later raid.
Yes, yeah. I mean that was the only downside of it was it takes effort to get there, and although it's great to have content which is challenging and which is new, and that gets the high viewers on Twitch. When you put out a new boss, everybody tunes in to see the first kill of the new boss, and it's almost like a community event. But the actual amount of people who can engage with that content is incredibly low. It's probably less than 5% of people can engage with new content like that. So basically you're making content that 95% of people can't do. So the only way they can engage with it is to watch other people do it. So there's always got to be a mix of, high-level content and mid-level content and low-level content. Because at the end of the day, if you've got no new players joining the game, then you got a problem. So you need to service the low players as well, the people who've never played the game, the people who've never voted, the people who have no opinion on the game because they've just picked it up because they saw it in the Apple Store, or well, they saw somebody on Twitch streaming it and thought, oh, I'll have a go at that. But you still got to service those guys, because without new players coming into the game, it will die. Mm-hmm. It's part and parcel of what has to happen to keep a game successful and alive.
Yeah, that was, speaking of, you kind of mentioned like finding the game on the App Store now. I mean, mobile's been out for how many years at this point? That, I just got to say, like, mobile as a child, because I did play as a child for a couple of years. And I think I even remember a certain moment just thinking about how amazing this would be if I could somehow play this on my Game Boy, you know, because I had a Game Boy Advance at the time. Just playing RuneScape on a game, obviously, was completely like not feasible at all, but like, imagining that was just surreal. And then now we literally have that. I mean, we literally have RuneScape in our pockets everywhere, and we just take it for granted.
Absolutely. Game Boy, that's Nintendo, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did look at putting it on Switch.
Oh, really?
I don't think anything came of it. Obviously, it's not on Switch now, but potentially that might happen in the future. But that's the obvious next step from going to mobile. The mobile thing was was really frustrating, because we decided we wanted to put it on mobile. So we got the engine team and said, hey, can you get this game working on an Android phone? And it took about 6 weeks to get it working. And we were like, hell yeah, 6 weeks, got it working. Bit of tidying up, we can get this out. So we came up with the idea and saying, right, okay, we've got let's give them 12 months. Let's say it's coming out winter 2017. We decided this, I think, in March of 2017, figuring that winter 2017 could actually be March 2018, because that really is winter. We figured we could pull that one off. So we said winter 2017, you have mobile, and so they got it up and working. They started fiddling around, and suddenly, when you start looking at getting it into the stores, that's when it gets difficult. So, for example, on Apple, you can't use the word "click" in a Apple app. It has to be press or touch. So everything in game that said click here to continue had to be rewritten to say press here. And then that doesn't work when you're on the PC. So it's like, well, we now have to have a way of identifying whether someone's on their phone or not. So we had to create a whole new system for that, so we could actually service them the correct words in game. And then the thing about Apple as well, which is a right pain in the arse, is there's a whole bunch of things you have to pass in order to get it onto the App Store. And they'll go through and they'll check a new app, and then the first thing they hit where you haven't passed it, they will tell you it's failed. They won't check anything else. So basically you submit, they say, no, it's failed. Submit again, no, it's failed on the next thing. And you can do this 20 or 30 times before you finally get them to accept the app onto the App Store. And that was a pain in the arse. Then you have to worry about, this is where it gets really complicated now. Then you have to worry about pricing of stuff. So Apple will say the pricing has to match our pricing. So if you're paying for it in the US, it's got to have the same price difference than the UK or in Zambia or wherever, anywhere else you want to pay for it. So we have to restructure all our payment systems, and off the back of that, to make it work with the Apple store as well. It was a headache.
Yeah, Apple. I mean, I'm imagining Android wasn't as difficult, or a Google Play Store.
No, it wasn't as difficult, but they still have a whole bunch of stuff to go through, and but Google's a lot easier than Apple, and God knows what's happening with Apple now, because they've changed a whole bunch of their reporting stuff, haven't they? The whole privacy thing that they brought out last year has meant that all the marketing has changed as well. So when it comes to computer games, marketing's a pretty straightforward thing. Basically, the amount of money it costs you to acquire somebody has to be less than the amount of money you make from that person. And with all the different tracking you can get through the app stores and across different marketing platforms, it was really easy. You could see exactly how much you were spending, you could see exactly how much money they were bringing in, and basically you could spend £1 million. If it brought you £3 million back in revenue, you just made £2 million profit. But the app stores stopped that. They suddenly said, well, you can't track these people now because they don't want you to. It's like, from a player point of view, brilliant, because I don't want people tracking me. But from a company point of view, who knows what they're doing? But anyway, that's really boring marketing-y stuff.
So, do you play mobile?
No, I work from home, so I'm in front of a computer all day, every day.
Yeah, that's me as well. I'm not a mobile player, but I have played it a little bit here and there, and I will say, I mean, the amount of improvements they've made and are continuing to make is pretty drastic compared to when it was first released.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's improved a lot, which is good. You can see that by the new people coming into the game. So
Yeah. So how big is the team now? Do you know? Like I read at the bottom of a news post. It's just like 10 lines of names now. It's,
so when we first started doing that, you put the name down of the core team. So it was the people who were working on the product and weren't dragged across other products. So we had Weath, who was our anti-cheat specialist. We had other people whose names I can't remember, who were in departments working just on our product. And now it seems that entire departments are now added to that list. So you've got all the anti-cheating people will be on there. You've got all of the data analysts will be on there, and just to get their name and credits. So I don't honestly know how big the team is. Probably 30, 40 people, I reckon.
that's just crazy.
Actually work, develop it.
So when did you leave Jagex? Because you've been away from it for a few years now.
Yes, that would have been May 2019,
Okay.
I think.
And
yeah.
do you miss it?
Of course, yeah, of course. You know, I worked there for almost 15 years. I miss some of it. So I miss working with the people in the team. I miss having the influence over the game that I once did. I get to hang out with the community anyway because I still do streaming and whatnot. So I'm still involved in that, which was the best bit. But the bit I don't miss is the Jagex bit. That's the bit that I don't miss. I think it was great making the game, but dealing with the company, I didn't miss that.
Okay, we need to open up this can of worms a little bit because I know people want to hear it. So there always is like these conspiracy theories going around, like the higher ups, you know, and the team that we deal with, you know, they're not able to share certain things, or they you know can't fully have transparent responses because of the higher up. So how is that exactly? Did you ever feel like you were kind of held hostage in a sense over the higher ups?
So one of the things I always tried to do is because at the time I was the product manager there, so I was almost the interface between the team and the senior leadership, and I always tried to make sure they didn't see what I was seeing. So I was put under a huge amount of pressure throughout for years to get MTX into Old School, because it was the obvious next thing. And look, I mean, it's an obvious thing to think about. It's like, right, okay, if we want to make an extra 50 million quid, let's just stick MTX in Old School. And from a business point of view, why would you not want to make an extra 50 million quid? And I spent an awful lot of my time battling that in a very isolated way, because I couldn't go to the team and say, "Hey guys, all the senior managers are trying to do this thing we all know is really bad," because it wouldn't have helped them out if I'd have gone to them and said that. And it was it was challenging times, and occasionally I had to rely on the team to back me up when certain decisions were being forced through. And fortunately, we managed to keep MTX out of Old School. In fact, just before I left, sort of the last thing I did before I left, I was doing a study on how we could get MTX into Old School. The reason I was doing that study is because I'm pretty sure I knew the answer, but I wanted evidence and data to back up what I was saying. But I couldn't go out with a mentality of saying, "Hey, I'm going to prove why MTX isn't going to work in Old School." I had to go out with a mentality of, "Hey, I'm going to find out how we can get MTX into Old School." And that's what I had to pitch publicly within the company. Is like, "This is what I'm going to try and do." And we had different, what they called, different focus groups. We did a bunch in America. We did a bunch in the UK as well. And basically, we went to these focus groups and we said, "Hey, Old School RuneScape's dying." It wasn't. We were just making this up. But Old School RuneScape's dying. It's running out of money. We're going to be pulling the support soon. We have to find a way of making money. And then we pitched all these different ideas to these players that we brought into a room to see where they would say where they would say MTX was suitable. And the only thing they would ever accept, even if the game was absolutely dying, they would only accept cosmetics, but only if the game was dying. Even if they would rather the game die than have buyable XP or anything like that in the game. And that was sort of music to my ears, because I knew off the back of that, is like, we've done studies on this, and we know that players would just leave the game if ever we did this, if we tried to sell something, sell an item or sell XP.
Yep.
And here's the proof that we've got. And I think Ash didn't even realise this until about 12 months ago, that this is why I did it. I think he honestly believed that I was trying to get MDX into Old School. And there's one item though that people, as soon as we mentioned this item to them, people would basically say, "Yeah, I'll pay for that right now. Don't care what anybody says. I will pay for this one item right now."
What was it?
No, you're gonna have to guess.
Oh God. I'm just thinking of like some sort of RS3 thing. I don't know, actually.
Ironically, it's actually been put into game now for free, which I thought was quite amusing. But it was Black Graceful.
Oh wow!
As soon as we pitched Black Graceful to people, we were like, "Well, would you buy this for 20 quid?" They were like, "Yeah, I've got my money here. Take it. Give me it now."
Wow. Oh yeah, that was definitely a really highly requested at one point.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Absolutely. That was it. And it was quite wonderful to actually come back from that and saying, right, I'm right that people do not want MTX, and I've got the evidence here to prove it.
Wow.
And yeah, please, I managed to get that done before I left. So.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think as a player, because I'm 100% against buyable XP, anything that's going to give you in-game advantages. But you're right. I mean, I think cosmetics, I'm agreeing with the players. If they had to be released into the game, and technically we already do have microtransactions through bonds, but they're like the best form of it possible.
So I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So why are you against buyable XP?
I think it's so part of it is just the reason I gravitate toward this game, and I don't even play any other game at this point. I'm 28 years old, and I don't even consider myself a gamer. I just consider myself a scaper, and I think the biggest reason is because every single game has some form of being able to progress through IRL means. And as soon as that's an option, I just lose interest. I just realize, like, okay, I'm not going to invest my time into this game if you can just get free advantages from not playing the game.
But it has that already. So bonds, for example, and real world trading in itself, that's happening all over the place.
So you guys released Iron Man mode, and I've been playing Iron Man exclusively for about 7 years now, and that is like the most untainted mode, and it's perfect. It's completely just like separate from any microtransactions, and if that were to be devalued in any way, I would not have a good time.
Yeah, so I don't think you could touch Iron Man mode, certainly. Yeah. That was all came from what Paul and Adam when they were doing their Iron Man modes back in the day. Mm-hmm. It's where we stole that idea.
Yeah, I mean that was brilliant. What do you think about the success of Iron Man mode?
It's still surprising because again, when it first came out, I mean, Ultimate Iron Man, right? That was basically a joke. We were like, man, no one's going to want to do this. This is creating an incredibly hard, tough Iron Man thing. No one's going to want to play this. And it's like, oh shit, people do. It's like, okay. That was practically a joke that we put in there because we could. It didn't take any effort to do it. But yeah, so we track. I assume they still do track the amount of Iron Men and different types of Iron Men and different normal accounts, and they just keep growing. And more people keep playing Iron Man accounts. And I think you're right that people want a honest gaming experience where there is no, where they feel they can compete against other people, and that achievements you make do have value and will always hold that value. I think that's why Iron Man is so important. When I've got this item, it's because I've got this item. It's not because I've just made a whole bunch of money from I don't know, chopping down redwood trees and then buying it.
Mm-hmm. No, it's really like it's the best gaming experience I've ever had. Just playing old school Iron Man mode.
That's fantastic. It's
So
fantastic.
yeah, the fact that I mean, it's actually very surprising to me that like RuneScape has Iron Man mode, because that would actually be something I'd be interested in, potentially. I don't. I mean, currently I'm just playing old school. I'm already just fully addicted, so I don't really have much
Yeah.
interest venturing out right now. But knowing that there is an Iron Man mode there sounds nice, because when I think of RuneScape, I think of microtransactions,
Yeah.
just everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the microtransactions impact Iron Man. I assume it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But it'd be odd if they did. But yeah, it was another. I mean, you look at the biggest updates that Old School RuneScape's had. It's not content updates that have driven people to play the game. It's all the other things that happened around the outside. So it's things such as the game going free to play. There's things such as mobile. Even the resizable screen had a massive impact on people playing it. And it's those updates that made the biggest impact on people playing old school, rather than the latest update. The latest, Inferno didn't have that big an impact on people playing it. It was the other stuff around the outside. So
let's actually
it's fascinating.
Talk a little bit about like resizable and stuff, because I do remember really early polls. This is stuff that was told to me. It's like early polls, like at some point I think maybe like the scroll wheel to move your camera was like failed at some point, or it got really close to failing. I don't exactly remember the poll, but
Yeah, we got some weird stuff happened. It was very much so. I mean, the early days, it was about finding our feet on what the polls were, what people really wanted to see polled, what we should poll, what we shouldn't poll, and it was some stuff people didn't want. The Grand Exchange is actually a great story for how that came about, because we looked at the Grand Exchange and said, look, one of the things that I always try to do to the game was, if someone's doing something and they're not getting any benefit from it. So, for example, they're standing around in Falador trying to sell an item. They're not getting any XP. They're not gaining any items. They're just doing trading. We should make that easier, because they should be playing the game to grow your character. So we thought we polled the Grand Exchange, and the Grand Exchange failed. And so we're like, well, how about we just do a trading post? So you can post your trades on it, and then you can contact the person who wants to buy your trade. Then you can meet up and do the trade. People were like, yeah, that's a great idea. So in order to do that, we had to put in a whole bunch of the Grand Exchange technology to do that. So we thought we might as well just stick it all in. So we incorporated it all in, because what was likely to happen, and what did happen, was that we'd put this trading post in, and then people go, actually, we want the Grand Exchange back now, please, thank you. Which is exactly what happened. So we put the trading post in, and people were like, this is great, but can we have the Grand Exchange, because it'll be even greater then? We're like, yeah, right. So
that's awesome.
So we had that up and working in about 3 days, because everything was already in.
Okay, so let's actually talk about the Grand Exchange, because there was definitely a huge divide between not wanting it, making this, it wouldn't be old school anymore, and then there was actually a huge chunk of players that, I mean, obviously the majority, that did want it and thought it would be a good addition. So I'm assuming the team was really actually for the Grand Exchange. Is that correct?
I think it was obvious what was going to happen. When we looked at it, there was a nostalgic element to the game. That's like, I enjoy trading in Fally, and it's like, do you really enjoy trading in Fally, or is it you're afraid that this is the first step in a bad direction? This is the first step of Easyscape. And which is why we offered sort of the in-between things. Like, how about all the people that are saying that you enjoy meeting up with people and trading, we give you that ability, but we make it easier to find that person to trade with. And they soon changed their tune to go, actually, we do actually trust you a little bit. Go on, let's have the Grand Exchange, which was quite cool. So the biggest update that made me realise that the game had changed significantly was actually the shift-click drop. Because to me, being able to drop items quickly and effectively was part of the leveling mechanic. If you wanted to go out and power mine something, you had to be able to drop iron ores really quickly. The quicker you could do it, it was a skill that you learned in order to get more XP. And the day that they voted in shift click drop, I was like, shit, the game's changed forever now. I still can't drop iron ore effectively, of course.
No, I've seen videos. Yeah, you can. You're really good at it.
As I went to Odablock stream yesterday or the day before, and he saw me in there, and he goes, Matt, every time I see you, I think of this video, and immediately brought up the video of me failing to drop the iron ore. And I'm like, do you keep this somewhere safe so you can always watch it no matter what? Is it sort of your motivation in the morning? I'll watch it every morning. Like, he got hold of that clip way too quickly.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's some clips that are just like, you can find them pretty quickly. Or yeah, I would imagine some people probably have them just permanently copied to their clipboard, pasting them in people's streams.
And I'm sure Odablock does that. Yeah.
Isn't that awesome though? Like you literally became like the meme of the century with that. I mean, it was just, it's just classic at this point. You can put it on anything, and it works.
The problem I've got, right? Okay, and this is why it happened, is because I've got big hands. Right, I mean, my hands are really big, and I lose mice in my hands because my hands are so big. And the mouse I was using at that time was this tiny little travel mouse, which is about a quarter of the size of a normal mouse. So I just couldn't even get my fingers onto the buttons. It was that small, and that's the excuse I'm sticking to. No one can prove me otherwise.
Oh my god. Those little mice, by the way, I've used those before. Those are hand cramping. I mean, they're awful to use.
They are. They're pretty terrible. I've got a Razer Naga now, I think.
Yeah. Very nice.
Which is still not big enough, but it's as big as you can get. So.
Yeah. It's interesting you say the shift click dropping was the moment you kind of saw, oh no, the game's going in the easy escape direction.
Yeah.
Because and I feel like almost every player, at least like, the really passionate players definitely have like their line that if you cross this, it's over. I mean, just the game's done for, but it never is. It's just the game continues on nicely. But that was actually one of the updates. Like I've definitely become a lot more like progressive with this game. I think initially I kind of just took on the like high level stance where people were very purist toward the game and for their own reasons, and it made sense to me. But definitely as I've seen the game progress and be made more like streamlined and just more I don't know, just not as clunky, it actually is a really good thing for the game long term. And obviously nowadays the player base is just so efficient, like efficiency driven, and cleaning up that clunkiness with having left click drop and like these left click banking and stuff. And oh my god, we could talk about plugins all day too. That's actually, we'll probably talk about that because you were in the early days of that. But I personally think like shift click dropping and all that stuff is really good for the game as long as it's done correctly and not made too easy too quick. So.
Yeah, I mean the game's got to progress. So you look at games that don't change and they die really quickly. If the game doesn't progress, it will die. And in the first 2 years, in fact, we put out 100 updates in the first 2 years. That's 4 weeks off we basically had in 2 years of updates. Wow. And those were over the Christmas. So I thought I better give the team Christmas off. But yeah, so that just shows the amount of effort that goes into, or went in, especially in the early days, of actually keeping the game moving forward. Even if there were tiny small things, it was still changing, it was still developing, it was still evolving into something else. And a lot of people wanted to say, can't we, and I still get the question now, can't we have a old school server? It's like, well, nobody would play it. You get a handful of people who play it, and if you want it to remain old school, then people will get bored of it pretty quick. Because the development and the new content, the new areas to explore, the new stories to be a part of, the new changes to how you do things is all key to make the game interesting and continue being alive. If it was the same old thing over and over again, then it wouldn't be anywhere near as successful as it is right now.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't be it wouldn't be made to be successful. It would be made for those players that just there's that handful of players that just really don't want any changes being made.
Absolutely. The reason Old School came, or the thinking behind Old School coming out initially, was that it would show players how bad the game was back in 2007. and they'd all go back and play EOC. Clearly, that wasn't the case. Had they have, had they have not had a team looking after it, then people would not be playing old school right now. The fascinating thing is, I would say, EOC is the best thing that could have happened to Jagex,
Yeah.
because even though it came out, people hated it. 30% of players left the game, which is what brought out old school. Had EOC have either not happened or been mildly successful, then how many people would be playing RuneScape now? Not very many. I mean, the fact that the player base is probably 4 times what it would be now if EOC had never have happened. Hang on, that's completely the wrong way around. Had EOC never have happened, the player base would be a quarter of what it is now, if not lower. And Jagex probably wouldn't even survive as a company. They certainly wouldn't be trying to sell themselves for $1 billion. So it's nuts. Best thing. I mean, if it were planned, it'd be amazing, but I don't think it was. I think it was accidentally a good thing.
Yeah, it's cool to see, those mistakes end up being very fruitful. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about plugins. When Old School first dropped, was there any sort of client? When did OS Buddy become a thing? Was that already a thing?
OS Buddy existed. It existed as RS Buddy first. It was a botting site for RuneScape, and they bought out Jagex bought out the Cluster Flutterer. It was called. It was supposed to solve botting. The way it worked, and I might get some of the details wrong, but it's fundamentally this. The way it works, it changed the item ID of items, so that you couldn't, if you were to say use item ID on this, that item ID would change. Therefore, you wouldn't have that item in you because it would be looking for something else rather than what you thought it was looking for. So we launched this system, and in 5 hours, the owner of RS Buddy broke it. And he emailed MMG, who was the CEO at the time, and said, there you go, I've broken it. And MMG was like, oh, why don't you come to RuneFest? We'll bring you over to RuneFest, you can show us what you've done. And so I brought him to RuneFest and offered him a job in the engine team. And he took the job, and I assume they're still friends. I mean, they've always been pally. And when Old School came out, he actually, Jack Mob, his name was, he actually built most of the anti-botting stuff for Old School RuneScape, and then launched OS Buddy, which was a helper. It's basically a Runelite, but with a payment system in there, so you could actually buy plugins.
And then it had a competitor, Conduit. When did that come out? Do you remember?
Oh, this is dirty.
Okay.
So Conduit was I got a message from one of the Conduit people. So we were getting quite pally with OS Buddy. We made several attempts to buy OS. I was going to get me into so much trouble, but hey, lawyers. We made several attempts to buy OS Buddy. We were planning to partner with OS Buddy, and somebody from Conduit got in touch with me and said, how dare you sue us to shut us down? I'm like, what? He was like, yeah, the people from OS Buddy have sent a message on your behalf saying you're going to sue us and shut us down. I'm like, what? No, I haven't. And we didn't care about Conduit. They were small fish. So we didn't really care about them. So anyway, so they shut down. I can't remember the exact details of it, but that was quite funny. So
wow.
OS Buddy were playing silly buggers there.
So OS Buddy was definitely the most popular, and then Runelite, I swear, came out of the shadows and just overtook it by night.
Yeah, no, indeed. And so I was having arguments over this partnership with OS Buddy with my boss, and the team knew about it. They weren't happy about it, and eventually, we managed to convince our boss that we shouldn't be partnering with them because it's effectively adding MTX into Old School through OS Buddy. And so we we and RuneLite came out. RuneLite didn't come out. RuneLite had been around for a couple of years prior to anything happening. And I mean, I knew the guy that ran it as well. I'd spent some time with him in the high level forums that I used to run back in sort of 08, 09. So I knew the guy pretty well. And I was chatting to him, and he was making RuneLite for the right reasons. He said, his main driver for it was, I want RuneLite because I want people to have what OS Buddy has, but for free. That's the only reason I'm doing it. The guy had a job. The guy was at university as well at the same time, and he was running RuneLite, building RuneLite, and he'd been doing it for 2 years off his own back. And that was why he wanted to do it. That was his motivation. I was like, fair play. The problem with RuneLite is that it was open source. Now, if you think about what it takes to build a botting client, the difficult bit isn't building the botting bit; it's building the client. Building a client that interacts with the game is pretty hard, and you need a level of expertise to do that. Writing a botting script is a piece of piss. And suddenly RuneLite had this client that was open source that anyone could just take and do anything with. So I sat in a meeting with our lawyers and our top brass in the company, the highest of the high, and they said, Matt, you've got to shut it down. You got to threaten to sue him if you don't shut it down. I'm like, okay, well, I'll do that. So I had a call with Adam and said, look, mate, you got to shut it down. We're going to sue you if you don't. And he decided not to do that, which I'm secretly pleased about. Not secretly anymore. I don't have to be secret about it. But I was quite pleased about, because he then just put out the news publicly that I'd gone on there and told him that we were going to sue him. So next day, that client had been forked 4,000 times. Everybody had their own copy of it, and so I got back in touch with Adam again and said, about yesterday, can you just close source it for us? Because this is the real reason. I just so wish that I'd had the balls to stand up to the lawyers and the senior people and said, can't we just get him to close source it first, then figure out what the right thing to do is, rather than going all guns blazing and trying to scare him into shutting it down.
Yeah.
But it's what happens when lawyers get involved in decisions like that. They don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So had we have done that, and had I gone to Adam and said, hey, can you close source it, because we're worried about people building bots off the back of it, and then we could work together to figure out how we can make it what you want it to be. I think that the game would have a lot less bots in it right now, it would have been a much better PR. I'd have had less death threats, and that would have been quite nice. That was quite a stressful night.
Oh yeah, I imagine. Yeah, so it's fascinating now that Jagex is fully teamed up with Runelite. They're promoting it on their site and everything. So you guys are completely partnered, and it's interesting because, I don't feel like there's many players that aren't using Runelite now. Like maybe new players, I guess, or people that are using the Steam client.
Yeah, the Steam client, I think, is it's messy. Obviously, clearly, what Jagex wants is everybody to use their client.
Yeah.
But they can't do that until they've got a client that's better than RuneLite, and I don't think they can ever win that battle. They've got to put so much resources into making a client that's better than RuneLite, because people will not move if they're forced to do it. People will rather leave the game than leave RuneLite behind, unless there's a better client to go to.
Yeah.
So they've had to go this and start working with. I assume Adam still runs it, and make it happen. But it's interesting where it's going. The only way, and this is where it gets really interesting, the only way they're ever going to stop bots is if they shut down all the clients and only allow you to access it through an official client, C++ based client. Otherwise, there's just no way they're ever going to stop the bots.
So would that completely remove the botting issue, or it would just make it so easy to detect? How exactly does that work? If optimally we all did migrate to one official client.
Yeah, so the client's got to be at least C++, so it's got to be in a decent operating language. Because what that allows them to do is it allows them to binarize a whole bunch of the stuff behind it, so that if anybody cracks it and changes it, they can detect that it's been changed and know the difference between their client and a different client. And that's how most things work. The It's not going to stop it 100%. Nothing will stop it 100%, but it will make it a hell of a lot better if they do this. But they can't rely on Runelite to create a C++ client that will do this. So they've got to do it themselves.
Interesting.
And it's not an easy thing to do. But it would drastically reduce bots. If you want to drastically reduce bots, of course, that's not always necessarily a good thing to do.
Yeah, I want to hear your stance on that because I think I've heard at least little snippets of you talking about the good potentially that bots have done for the game.
It's not necessarily the good. It's more about what the bots bring to the game. So the way I sort of explain this is, it's a question to you again. What would happen if all the bots disappeared tomorrow? Never came back.
We would be surprised at item prices. That's what would happen.
Item prices would go up.
Yeah.
All right. Now, are you telling me you want to spend your time collecting flags?
I'm an Iron Man.
So
you're
an Iron Man, so you're strange anyway. But
yeah, exactly. No. But I tried to at least capture what the main core, player base really is. They have jobs. They have 7 kids, 7 jobs, 7, children they're dealing with, all that stuff. The typical Reddit meme. But people don't want to be collecting flags.
Yeah, indeed. You just sort of look at I play the game. I want to do things that I enjoy, right? I've got a full-time job. I've got a family to look after. I've got my business that I run. I don't have an awful lot of playing time. I want to do stuff I enjoy. Right now, I'm actually doing agility, but so clearly I'm a very strange person, but there we go. But people don't enjoy doing the low-level stuff. People don't necessarily. Not everybody enjoys doing the low-level stuff. People want to get to the end-game content. A lot of people want to get to the bosses, want to get the best items, want to make money in order to buy them, and that is what bots bring. Bots are like, well, we'll do all the crappy jobs that you don't want to do. So the items are there, so you can do the stuff that you want to do and get to the content you want to play quicker. And that's one of the big impacts that getting rid of bots will have. On top of that as well, I must admit, I don't see a huge impact from bots in game. When I'm thinking about bots, I'm thinking about what's stopping me from playing the game I want to play. I don't have any problems getting resources I want to get to. I don't see them in game doing that. I don't know where these bots are. Maybe you've got a better idea than me.
I'm standing under like 5 of them right now. I'm angler fishing.
Okay, are they stopping you getting your angler fish?
No, they're not. So,
yeah,
I think for sure, and I've kind of talked about this with other guests. It's like we clearly like the player base is still loving the game. Like there's nothing nothing that's making people leave. Like a mass exodus of just like, oh, there's too many bots, we're all quitting. Like everyone's still playing, everyone's still having a great time. I think the main thing that bothers people and bothers me especially, and again, like I play Iron Man, like these things actually really don't affect me, but like as much. But some people, and we see it every day on Reddit, is you check out the high scores and you just see some boss that just flooded like every single account on like the top 25 is just botting. Like it's clear that they're not real players or they're gold farming potentially, and then people are looking at people thieving to 200 mil and beyond, and just I feel like part of it is just the idea. It's not really like it's affecting the gameplay. It's just the fact that there's not as much integrity to the game because of it.
Yeah. So I can understand the high scores. That I do get. One of the if you've got a high score, you want the person at the top to be the best at that thing. Not a bot. So somebody who's ground out, 10 bajillion Callisto kills wants to be at the top of the high scores. And that's an achievement that somebody should feel comfortable. We all know what it's like when a new skill comes out, and people just charge for the first person to get to 99 and the first person to get 200 million. And that's a whole meta in itself. It's something which is super important. So high scores I get. But other than that, the only other place that you see them as well is spamming the GE, but then they're just spam bots. They're not impacting any gameplay. You just turn off your chat filter and they're gone. But that's it. Bots, I don't think, are inherently bad. I think high scores can be cleaned up. I don't think that's so much a problem. And again, to be honest with you, the people at the top of the high scores won't necessarily be bots. They'll be gold farming accounts that are played by hand. Some poor grandma in Venezuela or something. We'll be playing those, and so which is why the bot detection stuff probably doesn't pick it up.
Yeah, because they are just hand playing it.
Yeah. But then equally, the anti-cheat teams seem to spend most of their time right now targeting death matches rather than going through the high scores banning these people. Which to me would be like, I mean, they don't even have to ban them. You just got to remove them from the high scores. They don't want to ban people. Just some extra tool that says, right, you're not going to appear in the high scores.
Yeah.
Keep the accounts in game.
Yeah, I do wonder what it would be like if we could just almost live in an alternate reality, just seeing what the game would be like with no bots. Because, yeah, I agree with you on, it's not going to affect the day-to-day player. People are still going to play. People are still going to have a good time. But I actually do think that clearing bots that are doing the busy chores would actually be kind of an interesting thing, because I actually think it would kind of encourage, not like encourage skilling, but it would make skilling feel less like a means to an end. And I guess I'm kind of unique in this position. Most people just like to PVM. People like just having the, just the high excitement activities always going. But I think one thing we miss from from just the sheer amount of bots is just that like low key like enjoyment from skilling, where we don't really get that anymore. It's not rewarding because they're just flooded with bots. So,
in what way is it not rewarding?
I mean, just rewarding in like a GP sense. Like you're just not, you're not able to. I mean, prices are so low on every massive resource. It's just not even. It's never worth your time to just do some AFK skilling. Yeah.
No, I can get that. I'd get that. But yeah, it's a challenging one. And at the end of the day, the bots will bring in some revenue for Jagex and probably several million pounds a year. And they're not going to want to get rid of that.
Yeah, that's I think the biggest thing that we kind of recognize is like, okay, there's really not that big of an incentive for Jagex to do any like huge, I don't know, cleanup of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be solved more from technology than it can just from banning accounts. I mean, hiding the bots is one way of going about it. And you can reduce the visibility of them so people see them less. Like I said, take them out the high scores. It can even manage the economy prices as well if you wanted to do that off the back of that. But it's a contentious issue, and I think it's a contentious issue because of almost like the legacy stance on bots and cheating as well within game. Jagex has always said that it's bad, but I think people have forgotten why it's bad and don't ask the questions now. It's like, actually, why should we stop this? What difference would this make to me if this thing suddenly stops happening or this thing starts happening? Other than I believe it's a good thing because Jagex has always told me it is.
Yeah, no, that's a interesting question. So what do you think about just integrity in general when it comes to services and when it comes to people logging into people's accounts for in-game achievements? Like, do you have any, because that seems to be another thing that Jagex has just stated for years and years, is that, like this game is about, the in-game achievements and things you can show off. And when those get devalued, like, is that a good thing? Is that healthy?
I think with something like Inferno, no, it's not healthy. You need to protect what an Inferno cape is, and for anybody who can do Inferno, and there isn't an awful lot. There's probably a matter of thousands of people who can do it. It's a skill that suddenly I have this cape that proves I am good at what I do, and now you see somebody with a cape, and you immediately think, did they get them themselves? Don't know. So I mean that's basically the reputation that is gone already, but that needs solving.
It's just
it's
so
easy
tough
to solve as well. Yeah, I mean it's easy to solve. It's not a difficult thing to to identify people who are doing it. It just needs resource to do it. It just needs somebody to look at them.
Really, it's not even when with people parsecing, like just completely like. I feel like it's almost undetectable. I mean, I don't know what's going on in your guys' systems or at least what the systems you guys use. Or
Yeah, I mean,
I'm imagining you're still on the team. I'm sorry if I keep saying like you're you guys like you're on the team, but yeah.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, you can see how people's play styles suddenly change.
Mm.
And there's so many metrics that you can pull. It's not difficult to find. It's not difficult to see at all.
Okay.
And you could build tools that would automate it as well. I'm pretty sure you could do that.
It's always funny, like those Infernal Cape cleanups. You know, all of a sudden there's this huge, you know, a matter of like 1,000 accounts getting their Infernal Cape removed, and then you just see the people that don't log in for like a week or two, and they're like, "Huh, interesting."
Yeah, no, indeed, it's quite amusing, but it's I mean, it's a solvable problem, and you know they can identify them without too much difficulty. Even it's just very easy.
Interesting. That's actually kind of cool to know in a sense. I don't feel like people really understand that. I think people just see as like if you're logged into a different computer, that's the only real metric you guys are getting. But you can.
Yeah. So to give sort of an idea, there's everything you do, absolutely everything you do is tracked in game and timestamped. Absolutely everything. No matter what it is, it's done. If you've got that window in focus, you're tracked. And when I left, Jagex was capturing, I think, 3 terabytes of data a day from Old School RuneScape.
Wow.
Just the metrics and telemetry from the games.
Wow.
So huge amounts of data is being captured, and you know that data will allow you to find out absolutely anything. I mean, one of the best things I ever built at Jagex was a tool which allowed you to look at what a person did next. So they complete a task, what do they do next? And then we used a whole bunch of machine learning chaps. I mean, they did clever shit that I didn't understand, to find different types of content that people would move to. So you could actually say, right, okay, if somebody does some wood cutting, what are they most likely to do after chopping down a tree? Are they likely to chop a tree down again? Are they likely to go off and not come back for 3 weeks? Are they likely to go and do, I don't know, fishing, what have you? And we could track, you know, the likelihood of somebody doing something after they've completed the task they were doing. And do you want to have a guess at what the most engaging task was, where people always went back and did that same task again more often than not?
So it has to be like a skill or just something they're doing in game.
A thing, a skill type, or not a skill, but a activity in game.
Okay, because I was gonna say I would have said if it wasn't a skill, they just go to the Grand Exchange and bank stand for a little bit. But I'm gonna guess. Let me think. I mean, I would assume it's just. I don't know. You're gonna have to tell me. I'm just imagining chopping a tree or something, but I don't know what the average player is like, honestly.
It was clue scrolls. So you do a clue scroll, and the first thing you do is do another clue scroll.
Wow.
And treasure trails were the most engaging piece of content. At a high level, it was raids, but across everybody in the game, it was clue scrolls.
Wow.
It's the most engaging piece of content. Well, absolutely fascinating. I hope they still use that tool, because that was great.
So let me get your thoughts on clue scrolls being a distraction and diversion. We've had 4 leagues out now, and one of the things you get from that is the stackable clues, which completely remove that distraction and diversion. What is your stance on that?
What I've found with leagues is that I've had no desire to do clues, because I've just got so many of them to do. I've got 72 hard clues in my bank on leagues at the moment. I'm not going to do them, so I'm just not going to do any. And it's it's good to have a large stack for people who love clues. Maybe a better way of doing it is to have some sort of unlock for stackable clues, rather than just making it available to everybody. For people who really want to, it's something hard, an elite diary of clue elite diary or something, where you got to complete it to get stackable clues. Or maybe you could have a whole. This is just be spitballing, so I've not put any thought into this at all. Maybe a clue diary, specifically a clue diary, Once you've completed the easy one, you get stackable easy clues, and then once you complete the next one, it goes up in tiers until you get stackable clues at each level. And the people who are really interested in doing clues and want to get the stackable clues can actually have an achievement around that, so they can then collect them and do them at any point. But for the average player who just sees a clue as a distraction and diversion, then it stays the same. Mm-hmm. So maybe something like that might be a way around it.
So you had left before they released the first leagues.
Yes.
What do you think about leagues just in general? I mean, obviously it's massively popular.
Oh, indeed, yeah. I've been playing this league constantly. It's been enormous fun. I want to max my account before it finishes, but I'm sure I'll get there. But anyway, it's an obvious next step from Deadman mode. So a lot of people play Deadman mode just for the XP boosts, because you could do stuff you hadn't done in it before. You could see those XP drops getting really high, and it was really good. And I was really pleased Kieran found a way to energize people and motivate people into playing something where you couldn't really give a reward for it. Because Deadman mode was easy, right? You know, you won it, you got a bunch of cash. There's your motivation right there. Leagues, people seem to be doing it without any huge motivation, although there is a reward in the main game for it. It's kind of like people are enjoying it because they're enjoying the gameplay rather than necessarily for that reward. In fact, I don't even know what you get for the rewards. I think it's brilliant that it worked, and this latest one has been incredibly fun. Good job, Kieran.
Yeah, they've nailed it. So I'm assuming leagues will probably continue here on out indefinitely. Have you ever like talked to the team about like potential new ideas for leagues, or are they pretty content with just kind of having it be what it is right now and just keep improving on it?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't spoken to the team since I left, so it's I think they will do another leagues. I think it's generally low effort content to create, so it's not hugely expensive to create, and they can whack it out when they don't have other big content to do. So do they do it yearly? I don't think they would do it yearly. I think maybe every 2 years they'll trot one out.
Were you there for King of the Skill?
Yes.
Okay, that was a really interesting drop. It was just like a month where you have an account that has 24 hours to log in. You try to get as much XP as possible.
Yeah, I don't remember much about that. It was a competition we did.
Yeah, I mean, it was like if you were like the top 3 in any skill, you got some sort of like little reward, and then if you were like the top, I don't know, 5 in overall total level, that was the actual interesting stuff to watch. Is watching Wooks and Bodhi going for total levels, because you would see people just grinding Tithe Farm for 24 straight hours trying to get their farming. That was boring, but that was just such a fascinating like release of something that like you just didn't have much time to really plan it. It's just like, okay, go, like, you know, hypothesize about what you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things that we were able to do on Old School, and doesn't seem to happen so much anymore, was there was an ability and a desire to try out new things and not worry about it failing, because failure is the biggest impact or biggest reason not to make a decision, not to try something new. But if you're comfortable with failing, comfortable with things not working, then you could try all this new weird stuff. And I think, you know, right now Jagex, especially with the sale coming up as well, they're so risk averse at the moment. They daren't try anything new. They're just going to have to keep doing the same stuff over and over again. And I mean, one thing that worries me more than anything is, although Jagex are very good at being innovative inside the RuneScape bubble, being innovative outside of it is something which they haven't done. I haven't seen them do in the last 5 years or so. So by that I mean things such as Deadman mode. That was a massive. Well, it wasn't even a massive risk. It was just something that just might not work. Seemed like a good idea, so we did it. And you look at the context behind it, and it just doesn't work. The whole theory behind it just doesn't work. Because effectively, you're taking an MMO, which is all about building your character, building your skills, and going out and doing bigger and better stuff, and then putting it in the context of a world where if you die, you lose everything. So you're taking away the whole reason for playing the game from somebody. You lose your XP, you lose your items. So theoretically, it just doesn't work. But that juxtaposition just worked for Dead Man Mode. But that sort of out of the box thinking doesn't seem to be happening a huge amount right now. Or maybe it is, and they're just not being public about it. I did hear that they are looking at rentable servers or private servers, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, there was actually a topic on Twitter about that. What are your thoughts on these kind of rentable, sort of create your own servers?
Well, I mean, I pitched it before I left. I was basically told to shut up, that it wasn't worth putting the effort into. And I was like, well, you're wrong. Because it was the obvious next step for me. You look at it and you go, right, you've got a game that is controlled by players. What's the next thing you can do to allow them to have more control? Why don't you just let them build the game themselves? Why don't you give them tools in order to create their own content? And it sort of came around like, oh, what we could do, what was a very easy thing to do would be, well, let's let everybody be a JMod. Okay, let's allow them to rent a server from us, say a bond a month for you and 4 friends, and you could all be JMods on that server. It wouldn't obviously account to your main account, say, but you could go around and you could do stuff and you could do cool stuff and have fun and do something normal like that. Then it was like, well, why can't you then allow them to start creating their own content? So why can't you give them a map editor so they can move trees around? Why can't you give them access to tools which allow them to create new bosses, and eventually give them access to tools that allow them to put new assets into the game, so they can start creating their own content, very much like Minecraft does. And that to me was the biggest thing that you could ask for your players, or you could do for your players, is like, you love the game so much, why don't you make the content? And then you can make content, and then you could charge other people to access it as well. So, for example, if you have a server that you pay 50 bonds a month for, so that 500 people can access it, you then charge everybody a bond for a month's access, then you can make a whole bunch of money off it. Jagex will make a whole bunch of money off it, and then you can start building businesses around creating RuneScape content.
Wow.
The amount of different content that could be created would be huge. And I pitched this, and it was like, that's crazy. No one's going to do that. And then you look at things like Roblox. You look at things like Fortnite. Yep. You look at things like all the Web3 stuff that's going on where people do this, and they're building businesses around it. And it's like, you should have done it 5 years ago. Done it 5 years ago. I mean, the company would be huge.
Wow. So what do you think? I mean, is that just not being talked about? And I mean, you're not there anymore, but do you think this is something they're even considering at this point, like something like that?
Yeah, I've heard they are. Yeah, I've heard they're talking about rentable servers. I don't know quite what they call them, but how far that goes and what that actually is, I don't know what that means. They did put some questions in the survey, didn't they, end of last year?
Yeah,
about it. But what I'm hoping they don't do is they don't look at it and go, oh well, nobody was particularly excited about it, so we're not going to do it, because that's the wrong approach to take. People will not understand what you could do with it until they've got it in their hands, which is why people don't get excited about new stuff. And new excitable things has to be driven, and a passive way of sending a questionnaire around and then analysing the answers from that is not going to get you much insight, I don't think.
That is so fascinating. I mean, I could literally see that completely transforming what OSRS is. I think there's got to be a lot of fear attached to that, of just what that means for the game. But like, I can't see it being a failure at all. It almost seems like it would just like you said, like just massively grow. It's interesting to see, because some of the time people get worried about like new game modes and stuff, kind of like separating the community and dividing it. If you were to be able to create or like rent your own like servers and stuff, that would create massive division. But at the same time,
well, it wouldn't though. I mean, the whole community is divided into 480 different servers, but you can still communicate. Whatever that server's doing, you can still communicate with people. You can still talk to people, and the community is still there and the same. Iron Men, are they really a different community to non-Iron Men? No, you're still playing the same game. You're just doing it in the way that you want to. I don't see that's going to split the community.
Interesting. Yeah, no, this would have to be something where like you really don't see how good it could be until it's really implemented, until it's in people's hands. like you said.
And imagine just the sheer amount of content creation you can make from being able to build your own stuff.
Oh,
And the
I would be
whole
obsessed
new
with it.
brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? The new brand of content creators that are going to appear because they're better at making stuff than everybody else.
Yep.
God, imagine what Odor Block will do. That'll be hilarious to see. But there's so much cool stuff that you could do. But hopefully it will happen, and hopefully it will be it will be what I envisaged it to be, which is a way for players to create their own content and to show their love of RuneScape by creating stuff better than Jagex ever has done. And there'll be some amazing stuff that could come out of that.
Furry Wall asks, what was your favorite memory at Jagex not related to RuneScape?
Not related to RuneScape. Jeez, I mean, they're all kind of related to
I know,
RuneScape,
that's what I'm thinking. I'm like,
they?
what could it even be?
Yeah.
Well, what about like outside, like like maybe like some, I don't know, events you had to go to or something? I don't really know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, isn't it? It's I mean, one of the sort of the best moments I had was we did a Dead Man in California. I did it in Los Angeles. Who wanted to see what one on the ground in America would do, and we were working with ESL, the esports people. They had a studio over there we were going to use, and got all the contracts signed and everything. And my head of events came to me and said, "Matt, we should do a site visit." I'm like, "What do you mean a site visit?" It's like, "Yeah, we should do a site visit. We should go to Los Angeles and check out the event arena." It's like, "I can't do that." It's like, I can't fly all the way to Los Angeles just for a 2-hour meeting just to look at a building. That seems like, it's like, look, if we go there, it's not what you expect it to be, and you've just lost all the money you're paying for a dead man. I was like, okay, that's a fair point. So I had to go and sell this to my boss. And I went to my boss and said, "Look, Neil, I feel really cheeky asking you this, but I've been talking to the head of events. And she says we should do a site visit to make sure the event space is what we need to do. But I think going to America and going to Los Angeles just for one meeting is a bit overkill. So I want to meet up with Twitch while I'm over there and meet up with Discord and some of our other people that we got over there." I was like, "Oh, that's fine. Yes, no problem. Off you go." So I went over there and I met up with Austin and Lord Kirk. So Austin shows Lord Kirk, so I'd known them for years. And they said, "Oh, we'll come down and meet you." And as they came down to Los Angeles, we spent a couple of days in Los Angeles together. And at one moment, there we were. Lord Kirk bought his guitar, so we're playing Red Hot Chili Peppers songs, sitting on Venice Beach. Lord Kirk singing along, me playing the guitar. That was a great moment.
That's
like,
awesome.
That was pretty cool. So yeah, that's probably it. I still remember that so well to this day.
No, that's really, really cool. Yeah, Lord Kirk is still around.
Yeah,
he's been around for ages. Was he around at like very, very beginning of Old School?
Yeah, he was. I mean, he's got Old School tattoos on him as well. He's got RuneScape tattoos all over his body.
Legendary.
He's a massive fan. But yeah, super nice guy. Love him to pieces. And yeah, I haven't seen him in so long. But last time I saw them, I think I was having lunch over at my place, and invited them over for lunch because they were in the UK doing something or other.
That's cool. Speaking of meetups, I mean, RuneFest is finally happening again after 5 years.
Yeah, and I've booked the hotel already, so that's fine.
Very, very nice. Yeah, I'm holding on to a little bit of hope. Who knows? Maybe I could get an invite. I mean, I think my RuneFest ticket will be paid for, which is really, really nice.
Yes.
But
yeah, I don't think mine will.
Well, how much are they? Like a RuneFest ticket? Because
I have no idea. I mean, I think last time about £100. I think.
Okay, that's not bad.
But I think they're doing it Insomnia this year. So how much is an Insomnia ticket? So it might be included in that. Insomnia is a game festival in the UK that they're doing at the NEC in Birmingham, and this is the same weekend as that. So they're basically piggybacking off that, I would imagine.
I'm so excited. I've never been to a RuneFest. I've actually never even been to the UK, or just anywhere over the Atlantic.
It's like America, just a little bit different. I had to say when I first went to America, I was like, it's just like the UK, just a little bit different. Just odd things here and there.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like, well, so what do you when? Okay, so for you going to America, what was like? You've probably been, I don't know how many times, but what is the thing that sticks out to you the most? Because then I'll just reverse engineer it, and I'll think of what I'm
Yeah.
to expect there.
So the super big buildings and the food.
What about the
So the
food?
food is huge,
Yeah.
huge portions of food, and super big buildings. That's it.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what else. Lights. So crossing the road.
Hmm.
That's a little bit different. 'Cause you have the little white men, little white lights
Yeah.
things going on there,
Yeah.
and we have we're a bit more blatantly red and green.
Mm.
That's a bit weird. And turning right on a red, you can't do that in the UK.
Really?
Yeah,
Why?
you can't turn right on a red because we're on the other side of the road, so you can't even
Oh
turn left
yeah.
on a
Oh
red
yeah.
either.
Yeah.
But you can't turn left on a red. And so when the traffic stops flowing, I found it really disconcerting that as you're trying to cross a crossing at junction in the US, cars are creeping around the corner.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm like, you just don't get that in the UK at all.
It's so bad in Las Vegas too. I mean, people in Las Vegas are. I mean, because that's where I was just at for TwitchCon, and yeah, you're crossing the road. You're gonna get hit if you're not looking. Like, there's people that will just squeeze by you with no, no.
My best moment in when the first time I went to the US, which then was San Francisco, and we're walking back from somewhere, I can't remember where, and we crossed the road at a crossing, and there's a lady crossing the crossing as well. And some car tries to creep past her, and she just stops, turns around, looks the guy dead in the eyes, extends her middle finger, and the thickest sort of accent you've got is like, "Fuck you, asshole!" We're like, yes,
That is literally America.
that's perfect.
Any like really condensed city, people are angry. People are pissed off.
And I had some Americans come over this year, in fact, and so I'm driving them around, and they said, "Don't you argue with anybody when you drive?" I was like, "No." Like, you thank people who wait for you when they stop for you to go somewhere. You sort of thank them. If you make a mistake, you say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and everyone's like, "Oh, it's all right." And nobody argues with each other over here when you're driving. Everyone's polite and nice and friendly.
It's bad
yeah,
over here.
it's
It's
yeah.
bad in America. No, I mean, even my older brother, like we were living together for several years when I started streaming.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like as soon as he gets in the car, he's pissed off. I mean, it's just kind of like the culture with driving. It's like you get in your car and you just start yelling at stuff, just getting pissed off at everybody.
Yeah, it's all about ownership, isn't it? And this is my personal space, and you're invading it.
Yeah, yeah. No, literally.
It's bizarre, but no, it's just so friendly and a lot nicer. It's a lot smaller roads as well. But anyway, you got a whole treat if you come over. Yeah, you got a whole treat of not being quite the same. It's going to be great.
I'm excited. I haven't heard the best things about the food. You seem to be a food connoisseur on Twitter, at least. I see you posting your meals, and some actually look surprisingly delicious. So, but
Yeah,
people say UK food's not great though.
I mean, it depends. It's the same with every country. Some food's not good, some food is good. One of the great things about the UK is we're so multicultural that you can get food from any country in the world here. For example, I love a curry, and you just don't get the same sort of curries over in the US where you can choose from 30 or 40 different types of curry. You can have, Chinese menus are, 120 items long, and just so much range of food. You can get French everywhere you go, Italian food anywhere you go. Basic British, cooking. So what we call a greasy spoon, which is a cafe, which has greasy spoons, hence why it's called a greasy spoon. Basically, you can get your fried breakfast, and we went to one. I was at my work's Christmas party, and we stayed overnight in a hotel. Went to a restaurant, not restaurant at all, a greasy spoon for our breakfast. Cost us £4.50, which is what, $6? And we got 2 sausages, 2 rashers of bacon, 2 eggs, black pudding, which you don't have over there because I don't think you're allowed to have it in the US.
What is black pudding?
It's pig's blood and offal fried. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Would Americans say it's amazing? I need to know that.
Only ones that have tried it.
Okay, that's good to know.
But yeah, so and,
Wow, $6 though.
£4.50. Yeah, I know, and it's a full plate of food, and it'll keep you going all day long. It's like this is amazing. But it's it's good, honest food, and I mean you also get stuff such as Sunday dinner. So Sunday roast, we have roast beef with the Yorkshire puddings and your
Hmm.
roast potatoes and vegetables and stuff, which is But we basically eat very fatty food because it's a cold country,
Yeah.
and you need to build up your immunity for winter, basically.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm really very excited to come. I'm so glad it's RuneFest being brought back. What year was your favorite RuneFest? I'm imagining you've probably been to like every single one since you've been working there.
Ooh, the best one was, I say 2017 might be, because we had, let's see where that was, 2017 or 2018. Sorry, I'm in videos now. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, one or the other. I can't remember which one. 2017 or 2018. Could have been 2018, in fact. Where we Old School were headlining the event. So it was the Old School reveals was the last thing on because that's what everybody went there to see. And I sort of walked on stage along with four other people to do the reveals. And everyone's cheering as you walk onto the stage. And I was like, oh, I got this. I got this. And I stood there and started waving my arms up, pushing my arms up in the air. And everyone started cheering louder. And I was like, oh, the power over 1,600 people sat in an audience. This is amazing. But that was quite spectacular. There's been good things about all of it. I guess the one that probably sticks in my head the most, and the one that was probably most that sort of showed me the importance of what we do, was it was at Tobacco Dock, so it would have been a very early one, maybe 2014, and I was outside. It was late in the day, so it's probably about 6 o'clock. Everything was beginning to wind down a bit. And I went outside to sort of get a breath of fresh air, and I saw this young lad sitting outside on his own. And I was like, oh, he's looking a bit lonely. I'll just go and have a chat with him, make sure he's all right. And you can see his dad was sort of sitting in the distance, keeping an eye on him. So I sort of went over and said, "Hey, how you doing?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm good, I'm good." I was like, "What have you enjoyed today?" He's like, he told me what he enjoyed. I was like, "What was the best bit?" He was like, "Oh, I loved," and he said, "The best bit was meeting me." And I'm like, "Oh my god!" And
Oh
that sort of
wow.
really showed. I mean, this kid was about 14 or so, and it sort of really showed the importance of who you've got to be a JMod, because it's not just a case of you go to work and do a job. People look up to you and people expect something from you. And at that moment, I suddenly realised that whenever, even now, if I get spotted on the street, it's very important to me to make sure that person gets the best experience they can. It still happens now and then as well. People see me and want a selfie. And it's always got to make time for that to make sure that they have the experience which is good, because there's nothing worse than meeting somebody that
You look up to.
oh, yeah, it's very difficult for me to sort of say nice things about myself like that, but look up to and have a bad experience from it. It's like you should feel as if you've had a good experience from that. The last time, in fact, was in July, I think. No, it was in August. No, it wasn't. It's in October. I'd just been for a long weekend in Berlin, and I was standing in the airport. My wife had gone to the loo, and I was standing there with the bag. And a chap came over to me, and he's like, Matt, can I just have a selfie, please?" It's like, wow, even in an airport.
That is so cool.
It was quite. Yeah, that felt
It's
good. That did. And my wife's in the toilet, so she didn't believe me. I'm like,
it's good to recognize that, I think.
yeah,
Just understanding like people do have a certain like image sort of people that they've seen and haven't met. So it's good to put on like your best face for that. So
yeah, absolutely. But the funniest one was I was I don't know if you know him, a guy called Bill Bailey. He's a comedian in the
Mm-mm.
UK.
No.
We're at a Bill Bailey gig. Me and my wife were, and we're leaving the auditorium, and there's a whole massive queue of people to get out. And as I sort of walking along, I hear somebody go, "Is that Matt Kay?" And I was like, "Oh, here we go." Put on the game face. Turn around, it's Paul Gower.
Oh
Paul
wow.
Gower recognised me. I was like, "Yes."
Wow.
So that was quite cool.
So you actually worked with the Gowers initially because you'd been working there
Yeah,
since
so I
2004,
mean,
2005?
I worked closely with Ian.
Okay.
I didn't particularly work with Andrew or Paul.
Hmm.
In fact, my first introduction to Paul was on my first day. And when I joined, there was a staff high scores, high scores of all the staff normal accounts on there. And when I joined, I was third, and Paul Gower was first. And he sort of came up to me and goes, "Oh, well, you're Matt, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yes, that's right." He's like, "Yes, yeah, I'm Paul Gower." I'm like, "Yeah, I know who you are." And he said, "Oh, I see you're really high up in the high scores. Bit of training, you could be top." And so I took that obviously as a challenge. And 2 weeks later, I was top, and he never spoke to me again.
Only took 2 weeks. That's awesome.
I don't think, to be fair, I don't think the two things were linked. I think our paths just never crossed.
I see. I see.
But it's much funnier if I tell it that way.
Yeah. I mean, the Gowers though. I mean, especially Andrew. You just see him. Just seems like the most humble guy ever. Just.
Yeah, I mean, I did spend a lot of time with him. I must admit, I remember one story about him is he turned up for work in a Ferrari once and then got told by his entire team that was a bit pretentious and he should probably not do that. Next day, he turns up in a Ford Fiesta.
Oh man. He was just trying to live the high life. Yeah,
I got shot down.
That is so funny.
But yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I never sort of really spoke to Paul or Andrew. Only really when we did the special events, the 10 years of RuneScape or 15 years of RuneScape and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's the only time I really ever spoke to them, and not for long. Now, Ash, obviously he's known them for years, and is very close and goes for dinner with Andrew, I think, every Sunday or something.
Wow.
Or maybe it's Paul. I don't know. Yeah. One of them. He used to. He might not have done since COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he knew them very well.
That's really cool. Yeah, I just see, like, because I remember watching that. What was it, like the 15-year video of RuneScape, and I just seeing Andrew kind of like giving over the game, and you could kind of see a little bit of regret. I mean, he definitely like it was so much, like such a big responsibility to keep running the game, but like losing all control over it in a sense is just kind of like kind of depressing.
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily about running the game; it's about running the business. I think it's the same thing. The problem that I had, I loved the game, loved the people I worked with, loved the community, didn't like Jagex, and I think that's what ended up with Andrew as well. He loved the game, and if he could have just ran the game, I think he'd have been happy, but he couldn't. He had to run the business as well.
Yep.
And that's a whole different way of thinking. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what the conversations were when he left, but I can imagine he probably does regret it. And yeah, is what it is.
Yeah, it's just tough because you don't really know what you have till it's gone. I mean, I'm assuming he knew what he had, but like just knowing how much of the, like you said, the business side of things you have to deal with now is just it's not the game that you originally created anymore. It's a huge multi-million-dollar business now.
Absolutely. What's really interesting though is Andrew Gower put out a tweet just before Christmas saying that he's going to be making an announcement about his new game in the new year. So everybody needs to follow him on Twitter.
Yeah, I've actually been following that. Do you think it's going to be anything like RuneScape at all? I'm not like super involved in what's happening, but
I have no idea. I mean, would you want to remake something you've made in the past? I don't think Andrew's that sort of person.
That's true.
I think he'd want to do something new.
Yeah.
Not redo an old thing, but who knows? He still loves, the elements of RuneScape are still things that he loves. It's that Dungeons and Dragons-esque type of adventure that you go on, which is what RuneScape's all about. Creating yourself as the hero, and basically dice rolls at different things that you can do. And it's just Dungeons and Dragons in a game with a different name on it.
In your opinion, do you think RuneScape would have gotten as popular if it didn't drop around the time period it did?
You couldn't release it now and be successful. I mean, releasing RuneScape 3 now would never succeed anywhere. And again, Old School has a charm, but the majority of that charm's driven by people's memories. And if those memories didn't exist, people wouldn't play it. I mean, I don't think either would succeed now if they were released now.
That's so crazy to think.
It's just lucky. That's all it was. You know, at the time, it was what 1998. The first version was conceived and worked upon, and then what 99. It was released 2001. It went members, I think. I could be getting the dates wrong, and then it all blew up from there.
So crazy.
Now it's $1 billion valuation on a business. Is that nuts?
Crap. That is so nuts.
Yeah. It's crazy. Crazy.
All right, let's I'm looking at these Twitter okay, here's a quick one. Cats or dogs? This is YA's asking.
I've got both. I've got cats and dogs. Okay. Well, it's got to be cats because I don't like taking a dog for a walk, cleaning up the dog shit, barking. You know. So my wife said, "Oh, we should get a dog." I'm like, "Okay, I'll get a dog." I'd never had dogs before, so we started doing it from blind dogs or not blind dogs, dogs for deaf people. And we started working with some of the charities there, basically bringing up their dogs. So you get a puppy, and then you have to socialise it and do training with it, and then it goes off and becomes a hearing dog. So we did that a few times because I'd never had a dog before, and it was a free dog, and you got support and taught how to look after dogs properly. So we did that for a few years. Then we got the dog we've got now, and you know, my wife was like, "Yeah, well, I'll walk it and you know, clean up the dog poo and you know, do all the stuff." And no, she bloody don't. I walk it every day. Yeah, cats are easy. Cats just sit on you and eat.
Yeah, they're super independent.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Zuvi asks, Zeah release. What did the team think of it at the time? Can we just have a send back a time capsule, open it up, and what was your thoughts around that time?
So it was our first big piece of content. We'd never made anything like that before. We didn't know how to make it, and I think it showed in the end. Interesting thing about it was that I did the original mapping for it. So I mapped it all out on squared paper and then gave it to Ghost to do the mapping in game, and that's what he did. And when I was sort of look back on it, it's like, well, it was clearly too big. And then I sort of look at why it was too big. It's because I got the scale wrong on the square bits of paper. It's twice as big as it should have been.
Oh, no.
I'm like, fuck. I mean, it's terrible because, you know, at least I should have logged in to have a look around it before it went out for release and it said, oh, actually, it's a bit too big. We need to make it smaller. But clearly, by the time I saw it, it was too late for that. And yeah, so we made it twice as big as it should have been. But yeah, I mean, it had a fair bit of criticism on release about the scale of it, the size of it, too much running around, not enough content, which is all fine. But I think, you know, you look at what it's turned into now. It feels good. It looks good. There's plenty of content kicking around. There's space for more content. Yeah. But the most important thing, and the reason we did it, was it allowed us to tell our stories without impacting on RuneScape.
Yep.
Because one of the big things it was a contentious matter at the time, and I always had a very strict view on it. Was, can we do something that doesn't make sense for RuneScape? And I'm like, look, everything's got to make sense in the RuneScape world. There's key things we shouldn't change. We can tell stories in different ways, but we can't suddenly do something which does not make sense. Just because we're a different game, we've got to sort of respect RuneScape as a whole. So, for example, we couldn't kill off Zamorak instead of Guthix, for example, if we decided to do that. But we could tell the story in a different way. And it's almost like the canon parts of the lore had to remain the same. And by having a new continent, a whole new different way of putting in new content into something which had this magic dark altar rhetoric, which could be linked to anything in any number of ways, and we didn't really need to answer that question. We could just make up shit and do what we wanted. And that's what that content allowed us to do. We could tell any story we wanted without worrying about treading over RuneScape, because the Dark Altar does that. Dark Altar magic allows this thing to happen. Job done.
End of story. No more questions.
Yeah, exactly.
What did you play a part in Raids 1?
Yeah, so I did the high level design for Raids 1. Okay. I basically stole most of the design from a game called Star Wars Galaxies, and there was a series of bosses. So what I did was I sort of like created, right, this is how I see it working. It's going to be underground, therefore we're going to have lots of caverns, lots of moss and seaweed and things growing on the walls, and have all these creatures in there. So I created all these sort of mood documents for how it would look. I came found a creature called an olm. I thought that would be quite cool if we just made it super big and turned that into the boss. So I took some pictures of this olm and put them in the mood board and said, the boss should look something like this. And then we had the great olm, so that worked quite nicely. And then I put a list of mechanics that we could use. These are all the mechanics that I've stolen from this game, Star Wars Galaxies. There's a series of raids called... I can't remember what they were called now. Epic raids or legendary raids or something. And they just had all the bosses in it just had great mechanics. So I was like, I'm just going to steal all these. So I just listed all these mechanics, and a load of them got into the game. So that was quite cool when the guys actually did the low level design. One of the interesting things about it as well is there was a desire to make sure that nobody could complete it solo. And it's not a desire I shared. I was like, you know what? At some point in the future, people are going to be able to solo this. Just because we haven't designed it this way, we've got to accept that things will come into game and allow people to create better items, and therefore we'll be able to do more stuff. But they wanted to put in, I can't remember who it was, wanted to put in a artificial way of forcing two people into the area, kind of like the entrance to the Dagonoth Kings, where you've got to have two people stand on those things. I was like, no, we can't do that. It's like, if people are good enough to solo this, then we should let them do it without having some god-awful, have 5 people stand on 5 different buttons to unlock a door.
Yeah.
Which, people will complain about, we'll end up removing anyway. So yeah, so that's quite good. The first raids was really quite terrifying because we didn't know how it was going to be received, whether people would play it, whether people would continue playing it, and the fact you still see people playing it today is quite amazing. In fact, I did it the first time on a couple of days ago on Leagues, soloed it, which was quite cool.
That's
awesome.
So
that felt good. I had a stack of 1,000 sharks that I managed to burn on my way through, but
you didn't need to share that part. You just say you sold it.
Yeah, cut that bit.
Yeah. No, what's really cool is I even ran a little survey on my stream, just asking people, because I'm always curious, and I've seen other people run the same surveys of what's your favorite raid. And it's actually very surprising how equal they all kind of get. They all kind of share around the 30% range of all 3. And
that's cool.
Having Chambers that's been out for almost 7 years at this point. That's actually, I guess, 7 years, because didn't it come out in January 20? No, it's 2018, right?
It was. I don't know when it was. Yeah, you could well be right.
Yeah, it was 6 years then.
Yeah.
But knowing that it's still really, really popular, and they've made great changes to it, it's still fundamentally the same, but it's an amazing raid. I had an absolute blast grinding it on my Iron Man.
Fantastic. No, if people are enjoying it, that's the key thing. And to make a piece of content, I look at value of what Old School brings, right? Mm-hmm. You look at the content in there and the replayability of it, and you sort of compare it to prices of other things. I mean, it's what, $10 now for a month's membership, is it? Or is it more, $13? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't pay for my own membership. I just, Old School pays for it now.
That's good. I'm still on the £3.20 a month pay rate.
Damn.
So for the price of that and the amount of hours you can get out of it, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you go to a pub with $15 in your pocket. Not that you got pubs over there. Go to a bar with $15 in your pocket. Mm-hmm. You're getting a couple of drinks and that's it.
Yep.
$15 for a month's worth of all the content that you could play. The hundreds of hours that you could sink into the game is just such good value. Good value. And
I was saying this earlier, the best form of microtransaction is bonds, because there are so many players that have not paid a dime to play this game, and they've sunk in tens of thousands of hours without paying anything, which is just insane.
Now, bonds came about because we were doing free to play back in February of 2015, I think, 14. And we did a whole bunch of modelling off the back of that to try and figure out what would happen if we went free to play. And we figured the only way to actually have free to play last a long time was to introduce bonds at the same time. And I had to do, we polled it to players, and players agreed to have it, which was great. And I did a live stream where I basically pitched, what was likely to happen if we had bonds in, if we didn't have bonds in, if we had free to play, if we didn't go free to play. Sort of explained players this is what our thinking was, and went into the detail of all the things behind it and all the maths behind it. And I mean, fortunately, it passed, which I was quite pleased about. But that live stream in itself was probably worth hundreds of millions of dollars, because had it not worked and had it failed, then and Bond's not gone into game. I don't think the game would exist right now.
Wow, that's crazy to think.
Yeah, I should have been more nervous than I was, I think. Looking back at it.
That is crazy. Yeah, so really, like, you actually don't think the game would have been around?
No. I think part of this game is very much how can I do something for free, and this is what Bonds allows you to do. And there is, no matter how much people will wish there isn't, there is a huge real world trading element to the game.
Yep.
And costs are lowered if you can pay for membership with bonds for these real world trading companies that drive through the game. And that's just, it is part and parcel of where we live. And it's part and parcel of, how the game survives now.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I think it's like the best form of microtransactions. It's such a cool way to have it benefit real players as well. Like, people can literally not pay a dime to play this game, which is just amazing.
Exactly, and it's an idea we stole from what game was it? CCP's game, EVE Online. They had the Plex system, which is exactly this, and we'd worked quite closely with CCP on a number of projects. And when it first came into RuneScape, it was like, well, just steal their idea. So that's what happened, and it's more beneficial for you to pay for the membership with bonds for Jagex than it is through normal payments.
That's so cool.
And so they want you to pay with bonds. Yeah, it's a win-win for everybody, really.
Yeah, literally. And I mean, I had Crumb. He was an old OSRS creator. He was talking about just the benefits of bonds. I mean, just a way to legally, in the game rules, purchase gold if you want to. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
There's so many positives to that don't lead to malicious activity happening in the game. So.
Yeah, indeed, and It's interesting because one of the things that I speak about on my streams, and it's just sort of thought I've had over the years since leaving Jagex, is why is real world trading against the rules? Maybe it's a question for you. Why is real world trading against the rules?
It's a good question. It's yeah. What do you have to say about it?
See, it's not an easy question, is it? So, I mean, there's several reasons I can think of. One reason is it stops people from buying their way to success, but that happens anyway. So you could do that through legitimate means with bonds, or illegitimate means with using gold farmers and that sort of thing. So that happens no matter what. So that's not really a particularly big argument. Another reason could be that it allows Jagex to protect their intellectual property. So if something's against the game rules, they can always maintain that you're not allowed to do that. We're going to sue you for using our intellectual property illegally. But that doesn't seem to be happening. They don't seem to be suing anybody or any of these real-world trading sites for doing this sort of stuff. So that doesn't seem to be a real reason. And I can't think of anything else than those two. So it's like, so why is real-world trading even against the rules? Why not? Because you always hear about people being banned for real-world trading unfairly and getting unbanned again. So why don't you just make it so it's not against the rules?
It is interesting because, if it was fully legal to do in the game rules, I mean, first of all, it's already happening in great number already.
Yeah,
and I think one of the things is like it's creating incentive for mass bot farms and, gold farming and stuff, which, you've already stated your kind of stance on that. Like we've talked about, what really is the big deal about that. Now I
Yeah.
have my own thoughts on that, but
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the bot farming course. Yeah, everybody have their
yeah,
own opinion.
But
But
at
at
the
the end
same
of the
time,
day,
if it was legal, like that would still be. It's already happening when it's illegal. So if it was legal, like what really would change? Would it just increase it? I don't even know.
and if I were Jagex, or if I were to go back to Jagex, which I've got no plans to do at all, but one of the things I would pitch would be, why don't we create a safe space for people to trade gold with each other for real money, and then just take a percentage off the top of that. That way, people can securely trade gold. Jagex can make money out of it. Individuals can make money out of it. Everyone's happy. There is an argument. I mean, like I said, I talk about this in my streams occasionally. And Wacko, one of my regular viewers, he says, well, it's going to increase bots, and I think he's got a point. More bots will go into game if you do that. So you're going to have to defend against them somehow and make sure that the community is all right with what's happening there. But at the end of the day, it's the way Jagex can make more money. It's the way that you can make more money. I can make more money. Anybody playing the game can make more money if they want to do it. Why not do that?
Interesting. Yeah, it would. It definitely. It feels like you'd really have to see every single negative effect that would cause. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if people are real world trading already anyway, so like you just wonder if it was like a legal, safe way where everyone's kind of benefiting and the game's profiting a little bit as well. That would be. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting.
I mean, if Jagex were to do that, I reckon they could triple their revenue in a year. That much money they could get from it.
That's
Be
crazy.
huge. Be huge.
Okay. Here's a completely different topic from Chaps asking favorite festive beverage.
I have to say that it is a glass of sherry on Christmas morning.
Very nice.
Don't drink it any other time of the year. I've had a bottle for about 6 years now. I have one glass on Christmas morning and that's it.
Wow. Okay. Let's see. Okay, here's one question from Maze. He's asking, do you feel the polling system in-game is working as you originally envisioned, or do you think it no longer serves its purpose?
It's interesting, isn't it, the polling system? I think when it first came out, it was needed. It was needed to grow trust in Jagex, certainly. And over time, that trust has grown and grown and grown. But is it making good content? I mean, I did a tweet end of last year, and basically I looked at how many things have actually failed a poll. And I can't remember the exact number, but it's kind of like 6 questions have failed a poll in the last 12 months. Of those, 4 of those questions were PvP related. Everything else has passed. It's like 180 questions or something has passed. It's like polls are ineffective. They're not stopping things from happening. Everyone's voting yes for everything.
Yeah.
The odd thing crops up now and then. Or it could be that Jagex are so good at only polling safe stuff, and this is the more worrying side of it. They're so good at only polling safe stuff that everything passes. And the reason that worries me is it boils down to this thing we talked about a little while ago about innovation outside the Jagex bubble. Are they afraid to poll stuff which is revolutionary, new, and different? Mm-hmm. In which case, it will fail a poll. It will never get going into games. So, but this, if we had not have done that from the beginning, you'd have had no dead man mode. You'd have had no leagues. You would not have had a new continent. Being afraid to do something,
yep,
is stopping them from doing some really cool stuff they could do. And that's the bit that worries me the most. And this is what I think polls are getting in the way of. Well, yeah, it's a great metric to say, hey, yeah, we passed 99.8% of poll questions, aren't we good? It's like, well, it's probably not asking particularly good stuff.
Yeah, I think my sentiment on the polling system is just it's nice having it. It doesn't feel like it's really bottlenecking anything. Like I mean, I actually do agree with you that maybe it's lacking innovation. It's kind of like deters that. But it's kind of nice for show almost. Like it's like
Yeah.
it's like a barrier, just a light barrier that can maybe help prevent something horrible from coming into the game. But to be honest, I feel like most of the community trusts the team to make sensible updates. So
Yeah, no, I think so. I think so too. It's, if for example they wanted to do something really bad, if they wanted to put MTX into the game, they would never poll it. And if they wanted to poll it, and I've sat in meetings where senior people have suggested this, that they fake the polls. It's not happened as far as I'm aware, but yeah,
so
very
you're
high
saying
up
those
people.
conspiracies actually might have a little bit of truth to it.
Well, there's certainly been suggested in some of the meetings I've sat in from very senior people in the company.
Holy shit.
But on my watch, nothing was ever faked. So
Okay.
I assume it hasn't since. I did hear rumor that they reduced the polling criteria so that sailing would pass.
Yeah, I mean that was the threshold was reduced to 70, and I think it passed at like a 73%. So if it hadn't been reduced, it wouldn't have. I mean, the thing is like even if it had failed, like it would have just been pulled again at some later date. And I feel like no matter what the team wants, sailing, they want a new skill to come to the game.
Oh yeah, yeah, indeed.
I think the team has enough analytics just to see that this would be a huge revenue boost to the game and everything. So.
Yeah, I mean, skills always have been a good revenue boost. Certainly in the short term, not necessarily in the long term. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. Not that we'll ever find out, but it'll be interesting to see what will happen with this. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if it were me, I would can the polling system and make no bones about it and say, look, guys, it just doesn't do the job anymore. Stops us from bringing good content. Stops us from actually making content that surprises and delights you because you know everything that's coming. And now we can actually do some PvP shit that you're not going to vote down and actually sort out PvP. We're going to do some stuff for Iron Men that's not going to get voted down, although Iron Man probably doesn't get voted down anymore. We're going to do some content that isn't popular but is needed to strengthen the niche communities within the game.
See, I think this would be cool is if they polled a question and the question is, should we create an unpolled update? So you literally poll just to have a singular big update that comes out where it's complete surprises. But you're polling it just to see if people actually want that. Because I think vast majority of the community would actually be interested in that. Because I think, like you said, I think we do lack that surprise.
Yeah, no, that'd be interesting. I'd quite like to see them do that, see what would happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, one of the big things with polling that I think was a mistake was hiding the poll results. I don't know if it's a mistake or not. Originally, I was against it because I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, my worry was we hide the poll results and suddenly nothing passes a poll. What happens then? But it's gone the opposite way, which is hide the poll results and everything passes a poll now, which is just as bad. It's like, yeah. It's but is what it is.
Yeah. Okay. DKU asks, what is the biggest difference between working on RuneScape in 2005 and OSRS?
I would say it is being able to do the right thing. So back in 2005, and sort of early days, it was very controlled. There was an awful lot of process going. So the way companies sort of work, when a company gets successful and they suddenly realise they've got something they can lose, that's when controls come into a company, and that's what was happening in 2005. Things were coming in which is like, right, you can't do this, you have to do like this is the process, this is the procedure. It gets heavier and heavier and heavier until you're left with no way to think because you have to be controlled no matter what you did. And that's what it was like in 2005. But when Old School came out, the gloves were off. We could do whatever we wanted, and we did whatever we wanted. We did what we felt was best for the game, and we were trusted to do that. And that's basically what happened for the next 2-3 years is we just did what we felt was the best thing for the game with what we had. And that's what worked, and that's probably the biggest difference. But 05, I mean, early 2000s, we had and show you how bad it got. We had our work was regularly checked by a performance team, and you you started off with 100% in all the things that you had to do. You know, your speed, your accuracy, and each mistake you got marked down on. So you end up going to meetings where they're saying you spelt a word wrong, therefore I'm marking you down for spelling a word wrong, and you would lose money off the back of it
Oh
because it would hit your
God.
bonuses. That's how bad it got. It was like horrendous.
Awful. Yeah,
It
that's
was,
not
it
fun.
was,
That definitely limits freedom and just limits your
yeah.
creativity, I'd imagine.
But yes, I don't think it's like that at all now, which is good.
That's good.
It was horrendous. That was.
Okay. Stigali asks if you could give a younger you one piece of advice for the community manager role, what would it be?
Oh dear. Piece of advice. I would say don't be afraid to make mistakes. Do what you think's best. If it turns out to be wrong, don't worry about it.
I think there was just it's hard. It would probably be hard to take the advice, knowing. I mean, I guess just just bringing up different moments where there's so much writing on this Q&A, for example, and things like that. It feels like a mistake could be severe.
Oh, indeed, yeah. But at the end of the day, you don't get better if you don't
That's
make
true.
mistakes, and you don't. The game would never have got better if we had not made all the mistakes that we made over the years. And actually, the one piece of advice I gave to everybody who started the team was one of the things that happens as a JMod is when you join, especially if you're a player, you suddenly get this huge amount of power. You're able, you're in a powerful position that you've never been in before, and everybody would do something stupid. They would either be an arse or publicly say something they shouldn't, or in some cases send pictures of their knob to players. But everybody would do something stupid. And I said, anybody who joined the old school team, I said, look, this is where you are. This is what's going to happen. You've got all this power. You're going to say something, do something stupid. When you do that, tell me, and then we can sort it out. If you don't tell me, that's when we got a problem. And that's the bit of advice I gave everybody who joined the team. And some of them did some stupid stuff, and some of them didn't. It was, it was fascinating watching the same things happen all the time.
What was the biggest? I'm just trying to think. Like, what was the biggest drama you would say? I mean, I'm already thinking one name in particular, but what was that most hectic time in your old school time there?
Most hectic times are always dead man finales when something went wrong.
I gotta say, every single Dead Man finale on Twitch, they were highly entertaining. I know it was probably this stressful as fuck for all of you, but oh my gosh, it's so good.
I did, yeah. I mean, I was the only one who was able to pull it and say, right now we stop. And I was to me, I was sort of everyone did their job.
Yeah,
that was fine. And when it all went fine, I had nothing to do. But none of them ever went fine, ever. I don't think I had one where it was just, it was okay. Everything went fine. But no, I had we found out quite early on, decision making under that much pressure is incredibly difficult. So we offline, we decided to sit down and write the solutions for all the problems that we'd seen and we were likely to get. So we sat down with the community team, and the community team sat down and was like, right, okay, what happens in this situation? What happens in this situation? We wrote it all out beforehand. So I always, at these Dead Man events, just walking around with a binder with me. And it had there all the emergency procedures to go through if anything went wrong. And it came in really, really useful because at some point, people, the entire team were clamoring saying, we should cancel this. We should stop this now. It's gone so badly. We should stop this. And I'm sort of sitting there with this binder going, no, we don't. This is the next thing we do. This is the next thing we do. Because it was so easy. These points, it's just so easy to fail. It's easier to fail than it is to succeed. And to me, success was always, we get to the end. No matter what the cost is, no matter how it goes, we get a winner at the end. So we know it's done. If you think about a football game as well, it's very, very rare that a football game or any sports game is stopped early. They always get to the end no matter what happens.
Yep.
And this was the same thing. It was, we get to the end of it, we get to the end of it, we always get to the end of it. That is what we're trying to do here.
Oh, man.
And this was stressful days.
By like the fifth one, you're just like, oh no, like you're just already anticipating
Yeah,
everything going
yeah.
wrong.
What's it going to be this time?
Yeah.
I was always positive. I was always like, this is going to be the one that's going to be fine.
What were the
And
now that you're like not working at Jagex, who were like the I guess J mods that were the most mischievous?
um, John C was hilarious. He liked to play pranks on people. One April Fool's Day, he decided that he would print off on the printer some signs and attach them to the vending machines. And it said, the sign said, "These vending machines are now voice operated. Please insert your money and speak the selection, and your item will be vended." And he put these on top of the vending machines. And everybody sort of walked up to him, looked at him, and went, "Lol, that's funny." And nobody believed him, except until halfway through the day, where you just hear across the office, "A1, A1, A1, you fucking piece of shit!" Followed by a bang and a loud smash and the alarm going off as somebody punched the front of one of the vending machines, broke the glass, and set the alarm off.
Oh my god. Who was it? Are we allowed to say?
I don't know. I don't know who it was. But he really wanted his chocolate bar.
That is awesome.
Signs came down straight away after that.
Who were your favorite J mods that you got to work with?
I don't think I had favourites. I mean, there's so many that I absolutely loved, and wonderful people to work with. It's I feel good about all of them. I mean,
That's good.
I mean, the people that were closest to me were the people who were on the old school team at the very beginning. So obviously that would be people like Ash, Weath, John C, Kieran. They're the sort of the old people that joined the team. I think were probably the people that were closest to me. But it was I don't. I mean, maybe it's just me. I just get on with everybody, but there's nobody there they're all my favourites.
That's cool.
Is that very diplomatic?
Now that works. That's a good answer. Okay. So I actually have an extension on this question, but this is going back to the bots. Why won't Jagex deal with bots? They seem to outnumber players 5-1, and we've already kind of talked about this, so we don't need to go super into it. But his final thing is like, is this intentional blindness for extra revenue, or are they just not equipped to keep up with the pace bots are being created? I also want to just add something to this. Do you know? Like, do you have any idea how like the ratio of players to bots is in the game?
Yeah, so I mean that number's not a definite number. I mean, when I was there, it was between 5 and 10%, which a lot of people don't believe. I think bots are a lot more visible to people who are looking for them. Like I said, I play the game and never see them, but then I don't pay attention to them. So the right now. Jagex are being sold. The parent company is looking for buyers for them. Therefore, the revenue is super important, so they're not going to do anything to impact that. So I could believe there's a deliberate, we're not going to ban too many people type of thing. Yeah. I believe there's a lack of experience and staffing in the anti-cheat team as well. I don't think it's particularly well dealt with looking at how the game is. Seems sort of haphazard, and the amount of people who are being banned incorrectly is horrendous. I mean, I'm always a bit dubious when people say this, but I've had multiple people that have come to me, ask for help, and they get themselves unbanned. It's like, this is not right. So yeah, I think that maybe they're relying too much on automation. The automation isn't working properly. Don't know, but it's a story from when I was there. This will get me into trouble as well, but hey, I don't care. I was sat in a meeting with the head of the department that's responsible for anti-cheating, and I said, "Hey, can we get more support for bots on Old School?" And he said, "No, you can't have any more support. You should make the game so it can't be botted." I was like, Okay then.
Wow.
He's still there as well, the guys. So
That's not
yeah.
good. That's not good to hear.
I think it's one of those moments. I don't. It's not often that I I'm lost for words, but that was one of them.
Yeah, that's not giving me too much hope. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean that makes sense. I've heard that as well. Like the company is being sold, so there is definitely an incentive to keep as many players or
yeah,
bots playing.
yeah. I mean, revenue is going to be a big thing that they care about. You look at how valuations work in companies. They between 5 and 7x the revenue of a company. I think last year it made about 174 million. So the valuation to that is you know, hundreds of millions, if not billions of pounds.
It's crazy.
Um, and I know it's a completely different world, isn't it? And they will want that to maintain. They will, yeah, they want to make sure they get as close to that billion as they can. I think they're currently sitting at 800 million offers have gone in.
Man,
To read
that's
an article.
so nuts for
Yeah.
RuneScape. What pulls the most? Is it old school or RuneScape?
I don't know. I reckon it's around 50-50 split revenue wise.
Okay,
I think that probably makes sense.
that's fascinating.
But yeah, I think RuneScape it holds its own.
Okay. Bon X is asking, Mr. K, what is the community event or project in general that you wish had come to light when working with Jagex?
So I would have liked to. So is it community? It's not really a community event, is it?
You were there for a lot of those really cool community events. I mean,
Yeah, the thing
obviously
is, I did.
COVID happened, but
Yeah, I did most of the community events that I wanted to do. One thing I wanted to do more of was live quests. So I used to look after the high level forums back when there was 300-400 high level players. And one of the things I did to them was I did a live quest where basically I used characters in game or just normal accounts in game to act as the NPCs, and then created a storyline, and you could go talk and have conversations with the NPCs because I'd be on the other end typing the answers and that sort of thing. And I did that for the players. I'd love to have taken that to a bigger audience. I'm not sure how I could have done it, but having proper conversations with NPCs in order to complete a quest and get a little reward at the end of it would have been quite a cool thing to do. You have actors playing the parts of the NPCs all day long.
yeah, that'd be crazy.
That'd be one hell of a typing lesson, wouldn't it?
For real, for real. But as long as it's the same, well, I guess it wouldn't be the same like prompt. It'd be different
Yeah,
if it's
dude,
live, right?
you'd have to think on your feet a bit, live the
Yeah.
character's life.
Yeah.
But that would have been quite cool to do. Proper live acting events. That would have been quite cool.
What did you think? Okay, so this is kind of going back a little bit around the time of GE release. I want to talk specifically about like Nightmare Zone and Zulrah because Nightmare Zone seemed to be a pretty big deal. So at least in the players' minds, it seemed like you guys on the team knew what Nightmare Zone was doing. It was creating a way to just get your combat up. Was there like a real big incentive to keep that in the game as long as possible?
It was a deliberate decision. I made that decision that I didn't want to get rid of it because that's what people were using it for. And at the end of the day, we were in a position back then because Nightmare Zone was the first piece of content, new content we could do, because we could do it all in code rather because we didn't have any tools. So it came before God Wars. But it was a deliberate decision at the time because it's like we're hemorrhaging players. We've got to do everything we can to keep these players in game because at the end of the day, had we have hemorrhaged too many players, like I said, our lowest amount of players playing the game was 20,000, and now it's like 200,000. It's tiny amount of people playing the game comparatively. So had that got much lower, then you run the risk of the project getting canned.
Yep.
So we had to do everything we could in order to get people into game. There was a huge shout for people just to migrate their accounts over into the game, which we couldn't do, which made the decision quite easy, but probably wouldn't have been a good thing either. But we it was absolutely, we knew it was doing it, and people are using this to AFK max their accounts, no matter how ugly it felt. The alternative was, well, we have less players, which means suddenly we're not going to get that extra dev or QA that we want, or Ash is going to get moved back onto RS3 to work on some projects over there, and things would have got worse from there. So it was it was one of those things where you have to make some ugly decisions in order to keep the game running.
Interesting. See, that's good to like hear almost, because it's hard. I don't know. I just feel like I wasn't playing around that time. I started in 2015, like I said, but so I was there kind of toward the end of that sort of drama, it felt like. But yeah, that's fascinating hearing it from like an inside perspective, because I don't think the players really understood that, at least those that I've talked to.
Yeah, and I mean, we're doing other things at the same time as well. So one of them was we had bot worlds, which we were moving bots onto in order to separate them from the players, because we didn't want to ban too many bots. Well, we couldn't ban half the bots because we didn't have any anti-bot software in place to find them. But we could have a fair get, and we couldn't be sure that these people actually were botting unless a huge amount of personal time was spent looking at it. So it's kind of like, well, if they're probably botting, we'll move them to a bot world, which just keeps all the bots together away from players, so it doesn't look so bad. We also keep our numbers up, and theoretically, hopefully, we'll get some anti-botting stuff at some point.
That is funny. So, what were your thoughts about like Zulrah? Zulrah came into the game, and it like the drop table was so extreme compared to anything else that had ever been released.
Again, the reason it was to combat bots, because again, we didn't have anything much else we could do with bots at the time. So it's like, how do we combat the bots? We're not going to win the bot war right now. We need to lower the price of the stuff that they're botting, and we do that by bringing it in via Zulrah. I think the mistake we made is we didn't nerf it quick enough. I think after 12 months, we probably should have been a bit more open and said, right, now we've got this extra botting stuff, we're now going to nerf Zulrah. It's botted now anyway, isn't it? So
yeah, everything's botted now. It's crazy.
Irony. But yeah, so it's yeah. I think has it been nerfed now or not? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean the thing is like nowadays we play an entirely different game compared to like 2014. I mean every boss table is pretty lucrative. So we do definitely play in a different era where everything's kind of Zulrah-ish. Which is, I think it's fun. I'm not gonna lie, it's fun. It's just it's interesting to see. I mean, people don't have a problem with it for the most part. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, the culture of RuneScape has changed. It used to be that you go to a bot and or go to a boss to fight, and you want that big drop.
Yeah,
that's what you go for, and it's not that anymore. It's what's my return over next 100 kills.
Exactly. People have calculated everything.
Exactly. I mean, the wiki is amazing, absolutely amazing for the stuff they got on the wiki, and it just shows the understanding of the game that everybody has now.
Yeah, it's crazy. The wiki is actually one of the most beautiful things ever. It's just so in depth. I mean, I don't even play leagues, but I've seen the people using the wiki for leagues, and it has everything you would possibly need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I love about leagues is I've done so much content I've never done before. I said I did Chambers of Xeric. I did Sins of the Father yesterday, and it took me 35 seconds to kill the boss at the end of the quest. I'm like, fuck! It took me 3 days when I did it last time. but I do all this content I've never done before. I've gone out and killed all these bosses that I've never done before because I've not had an account that's high enough level, and it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Okay, let's see. Justin asks, do you believe OSRS is headed in the right direction? If not, what would you change?
I think this goes back to what we talked about earlier. I don't think it's heading in the wrong direction, but I don't necessarily think it's heading in the best direction. I think more innovation is needed to do things which have not been thought of yet. One of the great success, the reason why Old School's success was because we were able to do stuff that we thought was best at the time by thinking outside the box and doing stuff that nobody else would dare do. I mean, even as far back as the first live streams, nobody was doing live streams back then. Nobody was, no company was going out there and setting up, Q&As with the devs, and we had our weekly community live streams as well. And the amount of people that, the amount of companies that I saw after that start copying how we did it, and suddenly lots of red sofas started appearing, and different companies' backgrounds, and we almost led how a games company interacted with their players through Twitch, and it was quite fascinating to see how that all happened. And it's just slowed up now, and it's not being done anymore. It seems plodding and lethargic and not overly exciting anymore with what's going on now through the Q&As. And that's it needs rejuvenating and a bit more outside of the box thinking to do that. And that's why I think it's not happening right now. You're not seeing exciting new trailblazing stuff going on that should be going on with a game like this. It's how it grows.
Okay, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about, what you've been doing IRL. So, I checked your bio. I put it in the Sae Bae Cast tweet. You are a home brewer and guitar player. You've also been streaming on Twitch. Can you just go through your life a little bit that's not RuneScape related?
Oof, my life. So, I went to the pub yesterday, and they had some local special beer, and I tried it, and it tasted like beer that I make. And to be fair, I pour most of my beer down the drain because it's fucking awful. I'm not a very good home brewer, but I'd love the idea of taking natural ingredients and turning it into something, just stuff you can find from hedges. So I'll go out and I'll pick elderberries and then turn it into elderberry wine. Just by things that you find out in nature and turning it into something that you can use. And like I said, I'm not very good at it, but I quite enjoy it. And I made some mead that I tried, which is honey-based beer that I tried on live stream once. That was fucking awful.
But you had to swallow it because you're on stream.
No, I spat it out. It was like, this is fucking awful.
Oh my god!
So I'm not very good at it, but I enjoy it, and it keeps me off the streets, which is good.
That's good. Are you learning? Like, are you going to continue to pursue it, or is it just
I'll
for fun?
I'll keep doing it, but it will only ever be for fun. I'm never going to get particularly good at it, but it is just for fun.
That's cool.
It's nice. I've never made a good beer ever.
One day.
One day. But yeah, so there's that. What else do I do? I currently work for Sumo Digital, which is a games company in Sheffield in the UK. They made games such as Forza and Hitman, Big Little Planet, Little Big Planet, and a whole bunch of stuff as well. So I currently work for them. I started with them in the middle of November, working on a brand new thing that's super secret that I can't talk about. So that's as much as you're getting out of me for that. But yeah, it's quite exciting. What else do I do? Play guitar. So I've been playing since I was 16, which is over 30 years. Is that terrible? It's all my uncle's fault. He was a record producer back in sort of the 70s and 80s. And we used to go visit him in his studio and get to play with all the instruments and all the gadgets that he had, which was always quite cool. And he bought me a guitar for my 16th birthday.
Very cool.
Which is quite cool. And there's a story that he has where he didn't even tell me the story. I had to read it on Wikipedia. This young band turned up to record their first album with him. And so we recorded the album, and he did all the sound engineering and all that sort of stuff. And after they finished recording, he was like, "Oh, do you want to buy the master tapes?" And they were like, "Oh, no, we can't afford the master tapes." And back then, this is back in the 70s, so the master tapes were the big reel-to-reel tapes, the 18-inch reel-to-reel tapes you get. And they cost about 70 quid each, which was a lot of money back in the 70s. And this band was like, "Oh, no, we can't afford to keep it." And he's like, "Well, I'm a struggling studio as well, so I can keep it for a couple of weeks, but I'm going to have to record over it." They were like, "Oh, that's fine." And they never came back for the master tapes. And anyway, that band was Iron Maiden.
Wow.
So it's a story and a half. They didn't even tell me. I read it on Wikipedia. I'm like, Michael, what's this? He's like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot about that."
Wow.
So yeah, recorded Iron Maiden's first album and then recorded over the master tapes.
That is crazy.
Which is quite cool. But he also did, a whole bunch of stuff for Gary Newman and the Stranglers and other bands of the 80s as well. So
very, very cool.
But Yeah, says that. I play a lot of guitar on my stream. In fact, you can redeem channel points to get me to sing a song to you, any song that you choose. And normally people choose songs I've never heard of before and have incredibly explicit lyrics in it. But it's all fun. So,
Oh my god.
it's a little challenge. It's quite entertaining. I have to get a guitar out for that.
I'm glad that you've been pretty active on Twitch. Obviously, you have like a new job and everything, but it's cool like having you around the community, just
Good, yeah.
continually.
Yeah, no, I love being part of it. You know, it's always going to be a big part of my life. RuneScape is, always has been. I mean, I didn't even join Jagex from my own decision. My wife told me I had to join because back in 2005, she saw a job in the local newspaper back when jobs were advertised in newspapers, asking for people to join Jagex as customer support, and she applied for the job before I did. She got an interview and a trial, but didn't get the job. And she came back and said I had to apply for it. And I was importing forklift trucks from China at the time, so I applied for the job, got an interview. In fact, on the day of my interview, I arrived there sort of about 15 minutes early, and I was like, right, okay, and we're going to wait till 5:02 and then press the button to tell them I'm here for an interview. And as I went to press the button at 5:02, a guy opened the door and goes, "Oh, can I help you?" And I was like, yeah, I'm here for an interview. And they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Just take a seat in reception and I'll let them know you're here. And I'm like, thanks very much. Sat down in reception, which wasn't a reception. It was basically a room with 2 sofas and a desk in it. Nobody behind the desk. And I sat there and waited. And it got to my time for the interview and nobody came up, nobody turned up. I'm like, this is a bit rubbish. 1:15 and nobody had turned up. 1:30, I'm ready to go. Fuck this Jagex. You can't even be bothered to come and interview me, even though I've driven for 2 hours to get here. And I was about ready to leave. And then the person for the next interview turned up. And I was like, oh, I'll tell you what, I'll wait for them to come down to interview her and then tell them I've been waiting. But had she not turned up, I would never have, I'd never have had an interview or be talking to you now.
Wow.
So
those little things,
was,
little moments.
Yeah, indeed. Anyway, I ended up managing the guy who didn't tell Francesco I was waiting for him, so that was quite entertaining.
That's cool. That's real. I don't know. I think it's really cool to have worked at a place where you know the game, the community and stuff. I'm always a little bit envious of the JMods getting to like work directly for the game. One of the things I'm not envious of though is like I'm a huge player. I'm a nerd at this game, and I feel like I'm not a coder or anything. I could never be a dev, but like imagining designing the game, I don't feel like I would get the same enjoyment out of it.
No, you're absolutely right. The mystery goes. When you know how to make a computer game, the mystery disappears. Same with playing a musical instrument. When you know how to play a musical instrument, the mystery of music disappears because you know how it's done. So that mystery disappears. And you get over it and you deal with it. I mean, I couldn't play RuneScape while I worked at Jagex. I've played it a hell of a ton more since I've left than when I was there. But it is part and parcel of it.
Yep.
That mystery goes.
Yeah, especially like just spending all day working on it, working on new content. Like, I don't know. I just feel like, maybe you'd want to play it a little bit when it's released, but like you just spent months and months designing it.
Oh, indeed. I mean, I always felt that, to me, the most important part of the game are the people that play it. And, I stream not to play the game. I stream to talk to people and talk about something that I know I love and I know that other people love, and that's RuneScape. And, that's never going to change. Even if I had no account, I'd just still sit there and just chat to people all day long. As I said to you earlier, I can talk and never shut up. It's
That's
great.
Perfect. It's perfect for a cast like this.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, Matt K, this has been a really fun conversation. Before we wrap things up, I want to ask you actually for 3 shout outs. I did not give you this, I didn't tell you beforehand, so this is just sprouting up upon you. But if you have 3 people in the community that you'd like to give a little shout out to, now's your chance.
I don't know. The problem is only choosing 3 is I'll upset all the others.
Yep, you will.
Yeah.
But they can blame it on me. It'll be my fault.
Yeah, indeed. I don't know. I don't know. Who do I like? I like Josh. Josh's a really good. JP Lau, the RuneScape felon guy who went to prison for doing stupid stuff in RuneScape. He's an absolutely lovely chap.
Yes.
He streams, so yeah, absolutely do have hang out with him. He's great. Lord Kirk, because he's still streaming. Absolutely, let's put Lord Kirk in there as well. I should open up my friends on Twitch and see who else is there. Who is great? Who's great? See, I don't want to choose any of the obvious ones, the big people, because they get enough attention.
Yeah.
God, I didn't realize I followed this amount of people. Jesus Christ.
This is my fault, everybody. I did not tell him beforehand.
Yeah. How about Syndicate? Syndicate, super massive guy. He's got like 1.2 million followers. But I think that sort of, it's amazing about him. Even though you'd expect somebody with sort of the followers he has to have sort of a limited outreach to people. Every time I tweet something, he always likes it. I put out a tweet last year about how difficult my last year was. He reached out to me personally, just to say, Matt, it's okay. I'm here to help if you need me. So, someone like that, even though he's got millions of followers, I never expected to get that from him. So that's cool.
That's cool. All right. Well, to all those that didn't get a shout out, Matt doesn't like you. No, I'm kidding. No. Yeah. Of course, I'm limiting it to 3. But Matt, thank you for those, and thank you for your time today. This was actually like really nice getting to talk to you for the first time. I've heard I've been watching you on the Q&As for years and years and years, and just
Fantastic.
Been popping in your stream and stuff, and I've seen your other interviews that you've had. Well, at least the one with OSRS podcasts. So
yes.
But yeah, thank you for your time tonight. For those listening, down in the description, I'll have Matt K's Twitch and his Twitter down there. Is there anything else you want linked?
No, that'll be it. I think Twitter is fine. They can always add me on Discord as well if they want.
Okay, perfect. I'll have you link that in the Discord, and I'll include it in the description as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love chatting to you. As you know, I can talk all day long. I've also completed 260 laps of Zeah's
Hell yes.
agility course during this.
And it probably felt like a breeze.
Yes. Yeah, this is the most I've enjoyed agility in a long, long time.
Very, very nice. Thank you guys for listening. As always, if you guys want to support the cast, down in the description, there's a Patreon link and a YouTube membership link. You can get your name on the title screen. But that is it for me. Matt, thank you once again.
Cool. Thank you for having me. And thank you everyone who's still listening.
All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.